into the unknown, down the rabbit hole, where it stops no one knows. We're going headed into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
You actually hit the live button. Here we are.
Hey, was that a dig at me?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I only waited around for like 20 minutes and then I was like, I'm bouncing.
Man, that was
Hi, everybody.
Epic fail.
It was hilarious to me. It was perfect.
Well, I'm sure.
Exactly how everybody has one. Everybody has one where they just do something like that. And then, but it makes you very conscious of never doing it again.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is Shay, my guest last night, and I were just shooting the shit. I was completely oblivious that we weren't fucking running live at all. And and Allie was running late. So when she jumped on, she's like, what? She's like, she's like, are we live? She's like, people are saying things in the chat. Because I didn't even look at the chat. And I'm like, oh my God. I look up because I use the same thing that you do. I'm on StreamYard. So I'm not even looking at YouTube. You know what I mean? So my chat, as you know, looks different. And yeah, I'm looking, and then I look and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't hit go live. So like I felt the worst for my guest because we really did have like a great conversation that like
still had a good live though.
Expected him to repeat, you know what I mean? So it was like, but Shay was a champ, and yeah, like you said, it's a lesson learned. That one will stick.
Yeah, you won't do that again.
No, for sure.
So I'm so happy to have you back, and I don't have like a whole agenda. I just wanted to be able to talk to you. I have so many questions. I know the chat has a ton of questions, and typically when we're live, we're like presenting information. So I just wanted the opportunity to just be able to like hang out and just talk to you and ask you some questions, get your thoughts, let them ask you some questions.
I'm here
and go
for
from
all
there.
of it. I adore you. You're my homegirl.
Right back at you.
I'm down to hang. Let's do it. Yeah, people in the chat are already blasting me. I'm asking me if I'm on the iPad. Like the iPad thing's gonna live in infamy.
That is.
Well, that's
are you
what
on the iPad? Where's the iPad? Where is she?
Well, she's downstairs. She actually, like, my whole house is sick. Like Scarlett, my little one, came down. Like they called her out of school. She was at school. We had to go pick her up Thursday. She had a fever. Grabbed her. Allison woke up this morning. She's like, and Allie's like got like some superhuman immune system typically. Like I've been with her for 20 plus years. She's never had a fever. Ever. She's like
seriously?
She's like Bruce Willis in Unbreakable type shit. So I'm like, what?
Nice.
So, but she has like a horrible headache. Like, but she runs cool. You know what I mean? So I think, I don't know, like a doctor might know. Like her temperature, body temperature is in like 98.6 typically.
Mine isn't either.
Yeah.
So a fever to me, like when I'm at 99, I'm like, I know I'm hot.
So that's probably her. But like she's always like, I've never seen her over 98.6, but I don't know. So, but yeah, she's typically very healthy. So, and something got her. She's got like a splitting headache, and so I've been trying to nurse her to health a little bit. But I'm holding up a little bit so far. So
you're not trying to force her to use an iPad or anything while she's not feeling well.
Here's the secret why she wouldn't use the iPad is the touch up my appearance thing does not work on the iPad. That was the whole reason why she didn't want to use it. She's like, because my hair looks like shit. I'm like, your hair looks amazing. Your hair always looks amazing. What are you talking about? You know, and she's like,
because of the camera, it just has a camera on there.
Well, the iPad has a camera. It's got a good camera. I've got like the iPad Max Pro. It's things like
whatever it is,
whatever it is. And it's got a real nice camera on it. So I had it set up like in the longer thing, but like when I scrolled up, it didn't give us that option in settings for touch up your appearance. So she's like, no, it's like, no, I'm not doing it. No, not
probably start using something like that. You touch up my appearance over here.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Zoom started that really because we were using Zoom Cord forever. Yeah, thank you, CW. I'll quit scolding Allie. It was like I had to, like, I'm reading through the chats. I'm like, oh my God, people think I'm yelling at her. I
actually love to read your comment section because your comment section is always people just giving you just shit.
Giving me so much shit
all the time.
I know. It's so when I had been doing the podcast for 2 years and I was solo, like my serialized stuff, Gacy and Garcia, is me scripted, you know, and I'm telling a story for many, many episodes, and I never had guests on there. So when I started doing the docket where I was going nuts, I was like, I have to start covering current cases. It's killing me. I can't just sit here and not do it. So that's when I created the docket, which is, I'm moving it to a different feed. Like I'm getting it off my Defense Diaries feed because it really is its own beast. And it's a totally different format. Now I had been a guest on hundreds of podcasts, like literally. So I know how to take my turn in terms of waiting, you know, if I'm a guest on somebody. But when Allie came on, like our first episode, you know, and we have our way that we communicate. We've been married forever. You know what I mean? We just
you already know what she's going to say. Right. She knows what you're going to say. She's done. She doesn't need to hear it. She's like, I can already talk. I got
exactly. And like, we're not putting on airs. You know what I mean? It's like, when you're getting us, you're getting us. It's like there's not a phony bone in my body. And same with her. We're both like, so our first episode, like people started like what is with this guy like talking over the wife? Like I can't. The woman never talks. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and once I go back and listen to her, I'm like, it's her interrupting me constantly because it's like that podcasting is like a dance, you know. And it's like
she's going to totally disagree with you.
Oh my God. But like for us, like we don't even notice it. But like for other people, they're like, so they thought I was like, I assure you, I want you to hear every word that Allison ever has to say because she's brilliant. I would never do any of like, number one, I couldn't tamp her down. Like there is no tamping Allison down. Whatever she wants to say, she's going to say. So it's like,
that's why you gave her a fever. So she's down for the count now. Did that on purpose.
She's money, dude. Like she's the best. Bringing her on was like a power move for me, man. You know?
It really was because she definitely compliments you, but she's so much more strict than you are.
She is, and you know,
he's on it. He's like, no, like show that document. You don't need to read the whole thing. We've got this. You know we know what they want. We know what you've got, and you're just like, no, I'm just gonna totally talk about whatever the hell I want to. I'll go on for as long as I want. She's like, no, we need to keep it straight line.
Exactly. Well, when we were kind of developing the show, you know, I was like, I want you to be like, I'm going to put you in the role of the legal expert, you know, and I'll be the translator. So I'll ask you basically, you know, what are we looking at here? And then she'll give her, even in real life, Allie is like incredibly brilliant, but isn't great at breaking it down for lay people. Like that's kind of my strong suit in terms of being able to kind of break the law down so that just lay people can be like, oh, now I get what that means. You know what I mean? So like that was kind of like going into it. We wanted that to be our flow. And, you know, by the third episode of the pod, we got it. But, you know, YouTube was different. You know, YouTube was a whole new thing for us too. We're still only like I've had the channel for like a year and change, but we weren't making content. You know what I mean? So I finally started going live whenever CrimeCon was. Like I did like a live with the worst camera work of all time. Like,
I know. I was there for that too.
Yeah, you know, so I'm walking around with my camera, like people getting like seizures and, you know, so, and that was like my first live. And then when we did our first live from the house, our internet was like garbage. So like
but you still had a crap ton of people in there that were just like, we don't care. We'll just listen to you anyway.
It was awesome. It was awesome. So, yeah, like our subs are awesome. They're amazing people. So, and like, the thing that I love about
I
it
guess
is
that
I've
they
been
like
able to
Alan.
meet. Yeah, for sure. There's no question. And I got no problem with that. Like, I'm no fool. You know what I mean? It's like, I know that my podcast listeners, when I look at my demos, it's 80-20 women to men. And that's true through all true crime. Women just consume it more than men do typically. So like, I'm like, okay, well, I'm married to a powerful, brilliant woman who's got a pretty good radio voice and is pretty easy on the eyes. It's like for the YouTube and for the pod, I'm like, it's time, because I've been telling her, I'm like, I'm pulling you on at some
Allie.
point.
Time. Just come
Time.
here.
She she still likes the pod better. She's like, I don't have to worry about what I look like. I'm like, you always look great, man. I'm like, get like, so, but no, what I was saying, I love this because I've gotten to make amazing new friends such as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was cool because the pod world is completely separate. It's like my friends that I made in that industry are my friends that I made in that industry. And I've made an entirely new batch of friends in the YouTuber world. So it's been like, and this kind of the same deal though, it's like the people that I love in my podcast world, I'm super loyal to and always will be, and it was kind of the same thing. We were all kind of coming up at the same time, kind of growing our shows at the same time. So it's like, and it's funny how it happens, kind of just the same thing with y'all, it's like, I love you. I love my boy Jay. I love my boys Publicly Buzz, and those guys and everybody's just good humans, like I'm big into like the good human thing. Like it's kind of a prerequisite for me. Like
Buzz almost got killed the other day on a show.
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell happened.
I was on with them. We were doing his
I know, and whatever the hell just fell off the ceiling and like hit him in the head.
His light cover fixture like came off his light, and I'm like, what was that? And Scarlett, my daughter, happened to be sitting with me for it. We're both. She's like, I got out of bed for murder church because he's an hour ahead of me, so I had to get up at like 8:00 on a Sunday and jump on. But I love Steve, so it's like, if Steve wants me to jump on, I'm going to jump on with him because he's my boy. But yeah, it was hilarious. I guess his wife had dropped like a huge bag of dog food, which like caused the thing to come off its moorings, and so. Like on camera, it came down, hit him in the back of the head. I'm like, man, luckily it wasn't like a heavy fixture, like that would have knocked him out, which would have been, devastating, but hilarious all at the same time. It's like, it's one of those things. Like we rent this spot outside of like Wrigley Field for like when Dead and Company comes and plays, like they'll play, like they did their last tour this last year, but like our spot is right across from Wrigley. And there's a total trip hazard that we like recognize as soon as we got into the spot. So people coming out of the stadium, out of Wrigley after the show, when they're going to be all wasted, like we would sit on the stoop filming it because we're like, people are going to be tripping on this thing all night because it's a curb, but it's a low curb and people just aren't going to see it.
It's so messed up.
Oh, it's so bad, but so funny. Like whenever we're feeling blue,
you could actually create a whole channel probably just on that.
Totally, 100%, because it's hilarious. It's so funny.
Throw some music to it, have a little slow down.
So good. Or the people that catch themselves, like, oh, but they don't go down. It's so good. It's so funny. It is so funny. All right, man. Let's dig into it. Enough about us, Teresa. Let's get into
whatever. So we know today. So I read through Kara's response yesterday, and then you read through it when you had Shay on last night.
Yep.
And then today the order came out that they are going to allow her response to be part of the writ. So my first question then is, how long do we have to wait?
So on Pam. You've had, do you know Travis? You know who I'm talking about? He's always on my lives. Really, he's another lawyer. I chat
with him in your chat sometimes.
Yes, yeah. So he sent Kara and I an email today, that basically said, here, I'm going to read it verbatim. So Maggie Smith, who he calls the princess of effing darkness. She is like in Indiana. She's like the code queen attorney. Like she's the one who when they drafted the first original action, was the main author of that one. So Kara was the main author along with Mark Lehman on the second one, but Maggie Smith was the first one. So he went to her and he says, I do not have permission to quote her on this. So we're not quoting Maggie, but thought it was a pass along. He said a knowledgeable Indiana appellate attorney said the Illinois or the Indiana Supreme Court typically decides original actions within weeks. So that's it. Now, like my feeling is, in light of what's going on with Rick Allen's speedy trial demand, or would have been speedy trial demand, that I think that they're going to hurry this one up a little bit. I think that they probably have been discussing it prior to even getting the responses. I mean, what has been going on is evident. You know what I mean? So as soon as basically, I think as soon as Kara's original action was filed, they kind of knew what was what, because she's citing the record. And then as soon as the transcript dropped from the 19th, I mean, that's really what they're going to be looking at. That is going to determine, assuming that they get past that first hurdle, which I was so concerned about, the procedural stuff with the, that aspect of, you got to go through the interlocutory appeal process and get denied on that before you come up to us, which I was concerned with. I had a few Indiana attorneys, including Shay, talk me off the ledge on that, especially in the Delphi Docs Reddit group, which there's some brilliant lawyers in there, former judges in there. It's a great group. It's really, yeah, it's a great sub. So they also helped talk me off the ledge, because I was like, man, by the letter of the law, I mean, it's iffy. I mean, I could see a world in which they're going to say, okay, we do believe that essentially that Rick Allen had no way to be able to file an interlocutory appeal, because he's having to rely on two attorneys that are not going to have a desire to be booted off the case. It's like we can't forget that part of it. I was talking about it on the live last night. Take it from a guy who's been practicing for 20 years. When you get a case like this and it gets,
you want it.
You want it. It's a career maker type case, especially if it happens to be that Rick Allen's actually innocent and you can win the case. I mean, it really makes your career. Now if Rick Allen's not innocent,
even if you're guilty and you can win the case, like Jose Baez.
Exactly, which I used that exact example last night. I mean, it made the dude's career, So, but I'm hoping that we're going to get it in a couple of weeks is what I'm hoping. I hope that, but look, they understand that this opinion is going to be a watershed opinion for them in terms of this issue moving forward, because it's really the first time that they're kind of dealing with it, so it's really an opportunity for them to where, and even though it's not like appellate law, it would certainly be referenced in terms of the Supreme, because it's the Supreme Court making a ruling on it, so there's going to be language in there that will be used in the future, obviously. So it's interesting, man. Like my friends, the prosecutors, Brett and Alice, apparently did a live that I want to listen to. They're just like dug in that there's no,
I know they are.
These guys are awful. These guys are just hot garbage, and they're hoping and praying that they don't get. And
I needed for about 5 minutes. I had to take a break. I started talking to the phone, and I was like, okay, they can't hear you. Like, stop talking.
I know.
So I was like, I need to take a break here, because they're really like, no, this is done. This is, we don't even know what this is. This is essentially a waste of resources, and they're going to stay. The new ones are going to stay and the other ones are going to go. And this is it. She had every right to do what she did. And I'm just like, I can't understand that.
They're dug in. I mean, and it's like, I say it all the time. I mean, the reality is they've never tried a case from the defendant's side of it. And like, it's a vastly different experience. It just is. They've never sat in a room with a defendant. They've never had to worry about a defendant's rights. I know that under the law, that the prosecutor and the judge and the defense attorneys all have to, obviously try to be caretakers of the Constitution and the defendant's rights. But the reality is the defense attorneys are the ones who are in there doing the heavy lifting and the fighting. The prosecutors,
Right.
A lot of that's lip service. And I'm saying that just because it's true. In terms of them caring about the defendant's Sixth Amendment rights, they care about getting convictions. That's what they care about.
Right.
So
they want to make sure that they can cover any type of constitutional issue that could arise. That's really what they're looking at. So
Absolutely.
they say, yeah, we care because they care about their case.
Yeah, and they don't want to get kicked back on appeal for certain. That's their primary, so in the sense that they don't want it getting kicked back on appeal, yes, they care about the defendant's constitutional rights, because if they get violated, it's getting kicked back on appeal. So it's a different caring than how we care for it.
Right.
So, but just like not.
So Ariel has a question. Ariel wants to know what you think if the prosecutor was removed, do you think that Brett and Alice would feel differently?
Of course. Like they would take the exact opposite side. I mean, everyone says the same thing to me. Oh, Bob, well, if it was the prosecutors that were leaking the all the evidence, you'd be all pissed off. You'd be asking for it. I'm like, no, I wouldn't. Because it's not that thing.
Well, the prosecutors are leaking the evidence. I mean, maybe not Nick himself, but it's coming from that camp. But that's a whole nother life.
All I'm going to say about that is when you look at who has benefited from all of these things that have happened, it most certainly has not been the defense. So, and I watched your live where you typed it out for us, which was very thoughtful and very helpful. Like where you were doing and where you're kind of putting out just how the timeline worked.
Yeah.
How shit
I
went
have
down.
so much more now, Bob. I have so much more now. It's ridiculous. I have it for all the leaks.
I'm here for it. You know that.
So it's just the defense does something. All right, you know what? I'll just bring it up for you guys.
Just bring it up.
I'll bring it up for you. I'll bring it up for you.
Because I love it. I think it's great.
I've been working on this now. I work on this every day, and because it's huge, and it's literally the entire case encompassed into one area of document. So I show it all the time now because it's like where I'm storing everything I have.
Yeah, I love it.
And then I give it to them because they can take it and do what they want with it. It's going to have all the information in there, and it's free for them to be able to use it and do what they want.
Exactly.
So I'll go through it though, because this is I don't want to go too far down the leak thing, because I know people are kind of just like, I'm
Teresa,
over the leak.
This is your show, and we will go however you want to go. I want to get you. I really do love your opening. Your opening's awesome. Did you put that together?
My friend Christine did.
It's great.
Yeah, she's very good at it.
Yeah.
It's
moving. It's moving.
It is. It really is. I had a different one before, and actually when she changed it, I had a hard time with it. And then I've gotten so used to this, I don't think I could ever leave now. So, all right.
Right.
So, we can go back.
Well, now you up the game with incredible graphics and like, woo, what?
Yeah. I'm telling you, awesome. It's very, it encompasses everything. It's got the timeline, it's got the interviews, it's got all the witnesses. You can go in and look at like the witnesses. You can look at what every witness saw, what they were doing. You can go into you can go into all the persons of interest. This is not done. But you can go into, let's see, where's Brad Holder at on here? You can go into Brad Holder, and then it's got all of his associates, and then it's got all the stuff with Patrick Westfall. It's got all the videos that Patrick Westfall's been on. It's literally, I'm telling you, it's never ending. Yeah,
dude, that
go
is
to Elvis
amazing
Fields.
Work.
There's Elvis Fields.
Wait,
go to Rod Abrams.
Like, where can I access this thing so I can?
It's just a link. Yeah, I can send you the link.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, like I said, it's not done, but it just has everything. Then like the old school Kokomo crew, all the old, that was a big, big thing back in the day. So then it's also got like stuff about Libby. It's got her social media. It's got photos of her, her mom, and then grandparents and the interviews, and it's got it's going to have literally anything that you want, because I lose it. So this,
That's
as much as I
amazing.
did this for everybody, I also did this for me because I lose shit because there's so much of it, and I'm like, where the hell did I put it? Where did it go? So,
Wow, that's like
it's got the
that's
family
amazing.
tree. So if you want to know who anybody is, they're there too.
Holy shit!
Yeah, the timeline broken down, so you can go in,
Wow.
look at like the 13th. Gives you everything on the 13th.
Wow, that's like sleuthy level work right there. You know, I mean,
Some of this is from Sleuth because she hooks me up with some documents. I'm like, I can't find this document. I've lost it, and I know I've had it, and I've downloaded it like 7 times. And then she comes in and she just sends it to me, and she's like, calm down, it's right here. And so then I'm like, okay, I got to store it over here.
Dude, I'm just telling you, like, when people try to come at me like about Sleuthy, I ain't having it. Because, you know, like,
I've known Sleuthy for so long. It's like she's just this is what Sleuthy does.
She is like a genuine. She's like the most. She's genuine as hell, and there's not a fake bone in her body either. I'll tell you that right now. And she digs. Like, she ain't coming with bullshit ever. So like like. I've had people like in my DMs. I'm like, what? I'm like,
they get mad because she's, you know, from Twitter or whatever. I don't know. Like, that's like a big thing. It's like the fight between the social medias, and it's like, you know, she's over there on Twitter.
Like, I don't care about that stuff. Like I don't get involved with people's spats and whatever. Yeah. Like, that's not my thing, man. Like, you know, like, I don't care what predates my relationships with anybody that I meet. Like, I base my relationships on my interactions with people I consider my friends, and that's it. You know, I'm not trying to pick up anybody else's mantle and carry it for them, because that's not my business.
I don't have time to figure out the who's right and the who's wrong, and that's what I always say. I
don't care.
I don't really care. Yeah, that's why I'm mad. People get really mad about that because they want you to pick a side, and I'm like, I can't, because I'm not. I feel like I don't have enough hours in my day to accomplish the shit that I need to do. And I'm a mom of 3 kids. Like, they got stuff going on all the time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to dig into why people don't like each other, because I'd rather dig into this and make something that's like this. That's what I want to do.
Dude, and that's exactly what you should be doing, because this is amazing. Yeah, it's just like,
and I do feel that Ruthie, me, you, and a few other people that I know that hang out in this chat, we're just the type of people that people either going to like us or they're not. And I'm at the point in my life. I mean, shit, I'm old enough to know now, if you don't like me, I just really don't care. I mean, you know, and if you love me, then I love you. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it's at. I got other shit to do.
And like, just like, you got that thing like that I've got, and that like we are who we are. You know, it's like, I'm not putting on airs for anybody ever.
No.
And
my husband would have changed me 17 years ago if he could have, and it never worked, and he's still here, and that's just how life is. This is it. This is
totally 100%. Same with Alice and I. Like, we actually went to couples therapy before we were married. So just so you understand, like, because we were both lawyers, so like we had actually, and we were both lawyers, and we were working together. And I want everybody that's married out there to try to think about that for just a second. Just let that, and like, litigators, not like I'm a patent lawyer or a corporate lawyer looking through like, we argue for a living. So when we would get into some beef, it was, and Allison, I don't care. Did you guys
like the prosecutor stand and the defense attorney stand, and you're like, okay, here we are, and now you're going to show me all your evidence that proves what you think is right, and I'm going to show you all my evidence of why you're wrong.
I without like the actual stands, it was just you know, it's funny. It's like, and neither one of us gives an inch. You know what I mean? And it's like, wife, happy life. So like, I did wise up over time that sometimes I just have to shut the hell up. You know, exactly. That comes with wisdom, and you know, I finally figured that out. And you know, I've always been the biggest champion of the fact that women are just smarter than men. It's facts, period. Like any man that doesn't like,
knows the majority of the audience is women. So he's like, yeah, of course there's
no, that like, I say that off. Like, I've been saying that forever. Like my position, and I'm sorry, because like, it upsets men when I say it, but I'm like, dudes running shit are like, our time is up. Like, we've had our run and it's over. Like, it's time to pass that torch over to the women and let y'all run shit, because we've had a long run, and I wouldn't call it a glorious run. I mean, when you look at I mean, history speaks for itself, and that's how it's looked with men running shit. Like, whenever I think back to the fact that women couldn't vote in this country until 1920, like like every time I think of that fact about this country, which I love, it blows my mind. Because we're talking like 100 years ago, which is a blink of an eye. Like, I'm 53, and my 53 years has passed so quickly. I can't believe that I'm 53 years old. I cannot believe it. Like, I feel like I'm 34, maybe, but it's like, when I just look back historically at our time is up. It's time for us to give it up. And just it's got to change, I mean, like we I've got a whole theory, and it would be a whole different live, so I'll digress on it.
I want to know how long you and Allie have been married.
17 years. 17. We've been together. We actually met in law school. I actually have a great, like, in one of my Garcia episodes, I talk about the first time I met Allison. It's a pretty classic episode. It's well written, and I perform it pretty well, but it's 100% true story. She denies part of it, but the whole story is true. Like, the first time I ever laid eyes on her, first day of torts, 1L law school at Chicago, Kent in the city. It happened to be where my father went. And she's an East Coast girl. She's from Philly, but her family had moved to the Illinois area because her father was involved with a company, a startup. And so back in 2000, when we started in 1998, I'm walking into torts, and I had been a social worker for 5 years. I tried to work with kids, ended up working with seniors, and then I'm like, man, like, it's just like, it's incredibly valuable work, and it's very fulfilling, and I'm helping, but you can't, because of course it's a woman dominated field. So of course it's grossly underpaid and undervalued, so I'm like, man, like, and I had fought kind of going to law school, because my old man never pushed me towards it, but it was always omnipresent, it was always like floating around, like, are you gonna go to law school? So I decided to do it. So that first day in torts, I'm walking down, and I had decided, because I was a little bit older, I'm like, there's no sitting in the back of the class. I'm going to be that nerdy dude, front row, diligently taking notes, like always present, completely present, and I'm going to learn. I'm going to crush law school. And so that first day I'm walking down, it's like a pretty big amphitheater. It's a 1L class. So it was a big class. Walking down, and I see this girl who's standing like in the front, like so there's a main middle section, and there's a section to the left with aisles on either side of the middle section. And I see this girl talking to another girl on the opposite side, and it was tables. It wasn't desks. It was long tables, and they would have chairs. So she sees, like, so I make eye contact with her, because I see an open seat next to the girl that who turns out to be Allison, that Allison is speaking to. And she sees me eyeball the chair. All right. And this is right before class is starting. Allison proceeds to dive over the table to snag that chair. And I'm like, and this is the first day of like law school. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm going to marry her. I'm like, I have to say, I think I probably did fall in love like that moment. I didn't realize it, but yeah, I think at that moment in time, I was like, wow, this chick's a.
So where did you sit?
So did you sit
next to her?
No, it was like that was the only open seat there. I think I had to go second row, like, much to my chagrin, into the middle section. So I lost my front row seat, but that ended up being like one of her homies all through law school, and we had like a pretty big friend group. So. All of us were hanging. Like, law school is an interesting endeavor because, and my father too, because I was married when I went into law school with my first wife. We didn't have any kids together. Girl I had met in college. We were married, I think, 5 years. Neither of us were really feeling it. You know what I mean? And we didn't have kids. So We didn't own property. We were young when we got married. We had just gotten out of college. And Allison had been married and had 2 kids. Like Allie was like superwoman, had her first child, Courtney, our daughter, Courtney, when she was 19. So young, so fought her way through, through college.
She still went to law school and everything.
With 2 kids, 2 young kids. So when
deserved that damn chair in the front row.
Dude, she
earned that chair. Yeah,
all day. Of course, I didn't know that when she's diving over the table, but of course I grew to know that, so like law school, you're really in this war together where it's so much reading that you really do when you kind of fall into like a group, like a study group, that you really go through the war together, because there's no other kind of educational experience like it. Oh yeah, totally. Are you kidding? 100%.
She's from Philly.
My wife swears like a truck driver, dude. There's no. I told her on the pod, I'm pretty clean on the pod, like early Gacy episodes. I think I dropped a couple F-bombs, and I had like my old private investigator. He's like, my mom loves your podcast, man, but she keeps asking me, why do you keep saying fuck? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like older people. Yeah, the older folks don't like it. They find it to be repugnant to their senses. So, which, I get it. I mean, to me, it's just words. Like when I'm trying to think of the etymology of like who is the person that decided that like shit was a bad word? There had to have been like one dude, and I'm going to assume it was a guy just screwing like, you know what? That word, we're going to consider it to be foul language. Like, why is that? Like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. So that was
for my kids. My kids have levels of bad words though. So like, as they get older, they're allowed to say more things.
Yeah. Same.
That's really how it goes. Like, my little one can't say, he thinks stupid's a bad word. So he knows he gets in trouble if he calls somebody stupid, because you can't call somebody stupid. We
did the same level of, well, I mean, like, that's just that's just teaching them to be like courteous. You know what I mean? It's like
right. Because like, I think when you get older, they get a little bit more context. They understand that, like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. Like, that's like, it's funny stupid, and there's more around it versus like just like, you're stupid.
Right. Context is everything. 100%.
Yeah.
Like, and that's always our thing. It's like you have to understand the context in which you're using it, because it's like, that's always been my thing. I'm like, oh, well, like if my kid dropped a big, one of the big guy swear words, and I'm like, I would always like, but they use it in the right context. So I'm like, I'm giving them points for that. I'm going to admonish them. However, secretly, I'm very proud, because like Alice and I, like, we just like, we've never put on airs. I swear, like I have a foul mouth.
I do, yeah.
They hear it.
I try to keep it down for YouTube, but it does come out every once in a while because, well, before you had, you would get like demonetized if you used foul language, but now they loosened that back up, and they're like, obviously that's not going to work. And so then I started to get a little loose with it, and I was like, okay, I got to bring that back in. Right. But sometimes when I'm reading some of this stuff, I'm like, what the is going on here?
Me too. Or if I'm like worked up, but I try to save it for deep into the lives, like, or like the bots.
And everybody else has gone to bed.
Exactly. So it's
all right.
But
yeah. 2 questions.
All right, let's go.
When do we get to have the dynamic duo, Allie and Bob, on Criminality? Well, Allie is always welcome. When is Bob and Bill doing another
tonight with me? But she really is feeling shitty, like legitimate. Like she's like, I left her because I was running errands, like when I left the house. That's why I was texting you. I was a little panicked because I knew we were talking 5:15. So when I hit you up at like 4:09, I'm like, I was praying that it wasn't going to be that like in 7 minutes. You know what I mean? Because I got worried. Oh, yeah. So then I clicked the link that you sent me. I was like, oh, good, we got 68 minutes. So
you were good.
Yeah, no.
So when are you doing another AC Live?
Okay, that's like Bill's driving me nuts. Probably Monday. Like we're trying to get it set up. Bill's got some of the interviews that we discussed with some of the people that he interviewed about people that were seeing what Gacy was doing in and around certain properties. So our next live, we're gonna have those interviews because they're fascinating and they're coming straight from from interviewees' mouths, people that he was interviewing. So they're super interesting. And because like I really want that to pick up steam. Like I don't think that people understand that we are fully intending on finding additional victims of Gacy because we're confident they exist, and it's like some people will be late to that game. It's like they're going to be like, oh man, we could have been watching this dude on his live telling us what he was doing before he did it. And they're going to be late to that game. But those that were, kind of watching along with us, they'll be in the loop. It's going to be a big thing. And,
so are you going to add more? Are you adding more to your Gacy podcast then too? Or are you doing just like this live series now is Gacy done on the podcast and you're just doing more current to date on?
Yeah, Gacy season 1 is a complete work. Like that's done. But we consider this to be Gacy 2. So Darren's taking the sound and we're going to turn this into, we're going to turn it into podcast. So it's going to be Gacy Tapes Part 2 because not they don't always cross over. You know what I'm saying? I know tons of podcast listeners that don't do YouTube and vice versa. So it's that was why.
I gotta stop you real quick, Bob, because there's an issue, but most people don't even know that you interviewed David Hennessy because it's on the podcast. So I need to make sure that everybody is aware to go and listen because it's a very good interview.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are following the case don't know that.
I know. I've been holding it back. So I've got it. I'm going to post it to YouTube, but I've been waiting. I'm going to post it as a video because I obviously did it on StreamYard. So, but I wanted to push people. Like people have to understand this thing is my baby. Like this is I gave up my law career to start this podcast, and it's a great I'm biased obviously, but I don't know that there's a better podcast out there. There's different ones. There's great ones out there. I don't know that there's one that's better. I just in terms of what I can bring to the table in terms of I've got a pretty decent voice. I'm a pretty decent storyteller. I can write. And my source material is great. The Gacy shit's unbelievable. Nobody's got the source material.
It's extremely in depth, I think, is another thing. And so as a podcast, it does which is very good because to have a series like that, you have to have so many different elements to make it good. And that is what you do have. So that's why I was wondering if, since you guys are doing this more current, looking for the new victims, if you're putting that more docket wise versus defense diaries.
No, we're going to call it Gacy Tapes Part 2. I've got a little bit of sound left that I haven't used from my tapes of Gacy, but if you listen to the Gacy thing, it's not about Gacy. It's about the victims. It's about, the investigation into Gacy, the arrest and the trial. I wanted to give love to the victims who for 40 years, I'm on a live. None of your business. All right, pop in. All right, just pop in real quick. All right.
Just come in.
Say hi.
Come in here so we can all say hi. How you feeling, honey?
Good.
No, you're not.
You better?
Yeah.
Ish.
She looks so
all right,
cozy.
Don't leave your dirty socks here.
They're not dirty.
Well, they feel dirty and they smell dirty.
They're just for you. They're for you.
So yeah, the way that I'll we'll turn it definitely into a second season. But that first Gacy season was, I had that first source material because my dad had given me those tapes with him interviewing Gacy. But it's the one thing I didn't know anything about was the victims in that case. 33 of them that we know of. And I knew nothing other than Rob Peast, who was the last victim. And I'm like, man, and it's the same with all the cases. We know all about the serial killers. Who gives a shit? I mean, they're mildly interesting in terms of can we figure out why they're so depraved and disgusting, but beyond that, I really don't care. What I want to know about are the victims and the lives that were lost. Because when I talk about victims and you start thinking about the amount of reach that 33 young men losing their lives beyond just their parents, everybody whose lives they touched, were changed in a way that is really difficult to describe and in a way that you can't really articulate, because it's so wide reaching, and when you're thousands and thousands of lives were changed by the things that Gacy did. And, so I wanted to focus on them. And then I like what I uncovered was legitimately like in one of the biggest cases in American history, criminal justice history. I blew the doors off the thing, and I still can't believe, and it will be national news, because what I uncovered was unbelievable. How they got him. It's like unbelievable. And it came straight from the cop's mouth. And I'm reading through the documents, and I knew something was up. And I'm like, and my father was the guy's lawyer. I'm like, how did he miss this? Like, how did he miss it? Like, how they got him? It's an unbelievable story. If you haven't checked it out, and you're not wait, go to, what was the one before this, before JD? And what's up, JD? Thanks. JD was in the live list. I think JD was another one accusing me of yelling at Allison. Why are you yelling at Allison? I'm like, dude, I'm not yelling at Allison.
JD's funny though.
That is in the works. That is in the works. I'm actually working with the podcast, the person who did Murder in Illinois, Murder in Oregon, and I think Murder in Miami, I think is her last one. She's got her Lauren Pacheco. She's amazing. And she's got an amazing series of podcasts. And she had done one on Chris Vaughn. I don't know if you know who he is. And that's that's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because he's one of those guys who's sitting in prison, convicted of killing his entire family, his wife and his 3 kids.
Is this the one that you just driven down recently to go talk with people about?
No,
is that case?
I went down and I visited Chris in jail. I wanted to meet him. Yeah, but no, that's a different case. That's a case that I'm also working with Lauren on that case, and we're putting out a pod on that with along with Jason Flom, whom I'm a huge fan of. He's a huge if you don't know who Jason Flom is, Google him. Guy was the CEO of Atlantic Records, and could have done anything he wanted with his life because he made all of his money, and he decided to devote all of his time and effort and money into wrongful conviction work. So dude's like a hero in my book. And he started Lava. His record label is called Lava, and his podcast label is Lava for Good. So he runs he's got Maggie Freeling under his umbrella. And he just does he had Gilbert King do this Bone Valley podcast, which was amazing if you haven't listened to that. So it's I got in with the group that I should be with, which is defense-minded people, wrongful convictions, constitutionality, because it's I always try to tell people, I'm like, look, prosecutors and cops aren't upholding the Constitution. That's us. So every time they're casting shade, and
sure they don't like that.
It's no slight on cops or prosecutors. It's just facts. It's if the cops are violating the Constitution, I have to file a motion to suppress in order to uphold our rights as citizens. Because if we don't do that as defense attorneys, then the cops can run roughshod over all of us, no matter what. If you like it where cops can't kick our doors in for whatever reason they want, then you can thank defense attorneys, because we're the ones who call them on it. And when you hear about technicalities, which I detest when people use that, you got off on a technicality. No, you got off because the cops violated the Constitution. Yeah. So blame the cop, not the lawyer, for calling them on it. That's fact.
So that brings me to when Nick McClelland says, we just want to have a fair trial for them and for us.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you don't get a fair trial. The fair trial is against our government. It's to make sure we get a fair trial from our government. You are our government. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I was sitting there and I don't know if Nick, I mumbled it probably a little too loud when I was in the courtroom when he actually said that. Well, we deserve a fair trial too, Your Honor. I'm like, what?
Oh.
I'm like the government doesn't get a fair trial. I mean,
no, the fair trial is to keep it fair away from the government, so the government doesn't have utter control over everything that happens to us.
Exactly. Well,
And
I
that's
mean,
what the Constitution is there
exactly.
for. So I'm like, you don't need a fair trial. The fair trial isn't for you.
The way
It
that I try
should
to
be.
describe the
That's another thing.
Constitution, so the Constitution was written for us as the citizens of this country as a barrier from what the government cannot do to us. That's what it is. It's not like the government was formed in the document, and it's all the guidelines and rules that they can't do. Like if you read the First Amendment, like people are always misquoted. That's a violation of the First Amendment is about the government not being able to create laws, okay, that violate our ability to have free speech. Same with religion. It's like everything in the Constitution is shit that the government can't do to us. So prosecutors and cops are the government. Like you have to understand that. Like they get this free pass because they're seen as the good guys, because they're the ones in there trying to prosecute, sometimes horrible people. They're an amazing part of our government that is absolutely necessary because we need them for that exact purpose, because there are horrible, horrible people in this world. Notwithstanding that fact, there's people that are not horrible people that are arrested for crimes that they didn't commit. And we have to make sure that they get fair trials. And the horrible people that did get arrested, we have to make sure for the rest of us moving forward that even those horrible people get fair trials. We don't get to pick and choose who the Constitution applies to. It applies to every single one of us in this country, period, whether we like it or not. And we can't decide, because what I uncovered in the Gacy thing was unbelievable. And we're like, oh, well, half the people are going to be like, well, who gives a shit that they did that? Because, Gacy was human garbage. Like he got exactly what he deserved.
Right.
And I was not arguing that point of view. Absolutely. However, the fact of the matter is it does matter. We can't allow that. If we start allowing that for one, then the entire thing falls apart. We cannot allow for it. I mean, at that point, the cops are like, hey, he's dead. There's no appeals. Like, what do I care to tell you? You know what I mean? So it was like, and then when I just
all right, hold on. I have a tiny human interruption real quick. Sorry.
I love that. I love tiny humans. What's up, dude?
You say hi to Bob?
What's up, man? I should have had my little one was just here. You guys would have been best friends in like 5 seconds. What's your name, buddy?
Jeremy.
Hey, Jeremy. I'm Bob. Jeremy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, man. I'm Bob. One of my favorite Pearl Jam songs is called Jeremy. It's kind of a sad song.
Yeah, good song.
Good tune.
It's a good song though. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, you can.
All right, Sleuth.
Okay,
Bob, when you get a chance, I came across a case years ago that I beat Carl Galbraith. You know what, Sleuth? So you're not the first person who's come to me with that particular individual. You should hit me up.
Really?
DM me. Yeah, no, like I'm saying, like I had people coming out of the woodwork with, because that was one of the things. Like I'm like, when I was doing Gacy, again, I was victim centric with it. I'm like, if you know anybody that you believe that went missing from the years between, and I even moved it down to 70 to 78, that is still not accounted for, that is still missing, that it's still a cold case, that lived in and around the Midwest, because Gacy traveled all the time. He had a spot up in Wisconsin. He was up in Minnesota. He was out in Kansas City. He was up in Michigan. He traveled like a lot. And, like that comfort factor of his house being a convenient graveyard for him. When he lived with Carol and Carol's mother and Carol's 2 daughters and his mother from 72 to 75, after Carol smelled the decomposing body of Tim McCoy, his first victim, and was like, oh my God, what's that smell? And he's like, oh, it's a raccoon or something. So that was when he figured out, like in 72, after Carol moved in, it's like, oh my God. So that's when he laid a concrete pad over it and discovered that lime kills the smell, because people were like, how couldn't people smell it? Like by the time they got to Gacy in 78, there was no decomposing bodies. It was all skeletal remains. There was like, there was no smell anymore. He had poured hundreds and hundreds of pounds of lime in there. So there was no smell. He had like David Cram and Mike Rossi down there doing his dirty work, spreading the lime, which is a whole different thing. But yeah, so Sluice, DM me if you've got intel on that. I will 100% dig into it. And
so somebody was asking if you think that you're gonna use IgG to identify Gacy victims, investigative genetic genealogy.
Well, absolutely. So they did already with so when we were in the middle of kind of the first season, because we were producing that on the fly, like that was not something that was done in the can. Like when you're listening to Gacy and we're interviewing an old cop, that interview happened that week. I then like scrambled to write the script, and then Darren would do all the end work on it. And so as far as yeah, I mean, the answer is yeah. I mean, basically, I'll DM on Twitter. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Gacy was dismantling. It sounds right. It sounds right. Like I've got another guy who's a big fan of the pod. But the IgG. So I was telling you about Francis Alexander. So like in the middle of that, they finally, because there's still 5 unidentified victims. So there were 6 when we started, and in the middle of it, Francis Alexander was ID'd through IgG, and that was like. So I told Darren, I'm like, oh my god, I'm going. Like, there's no way I'm not getting into that press conference. So I'm like, I get down there, and like, oh yeah, I'm from Defense Diaries podcast. How you do? You just walk in like you own the place. So I'm like right in the front row, sitting there with my phone, recording.
Of course
the whole
you are.
thing. Of course. And then, so that's when I became friends with a woman named Karen Binder, who was working with DNA Doe Project. And they were one of the bigger, like, not-for-profits that was doing IgG work. Yeah. And I had her on the pod. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I knew it's so amazing. And I love it. And I've got strong thoughts on it. Like I worry about the cops abusing it because it's such a powerful tool. Like my whole thing with IgG is just like you can't use it as a fishing expedition, because eventually they're going to have all of our profiles in the database. they're going to get it. Like right now, the database is built out of the private databases from when people submit for Ancestry or 23andMe. And then, you got CODIS, and it's like the law enforcement side of it is not supposed to be digging into the private side of it, but it's such an easy workaround. There's nothing stopping a detective from creating an Ancestry account and just saying, okay, like I'm going to say that I'm this dude right here and like, bloop, and
that's
like digging
that
way.
How it started. That's why
exactly.
That's how it started, was like just creating a profile for the DNA that was used. So
exactly.
That's
like
my big thing. I love investigative genetic genealogy. That's what I would do in a heartbeat with the rest of my life. I think it's amazing. I love family trees. I love genealogy. I love forensic shit. So
it's amazing.
Like,
it's amazing work. And it's like when my grandmother made she was dying of leukemia in 1985. So she back old school pre-internet made me, which I still have because she made me a memory book. She made my family tree, and she the amount of digging that she had to do back then, and picking up a phone and there was no internet shit, dude. When you think about
full of sketching, full of handwritten notes from my family, everything. I went to graveyards with my mom, and we would go through and we'd sketch out the gravestones so we could put them into the documents. It's one of my favorite. I love it. My grandmother did it. My great aunt did it. My mom, my cousin passed it on to me. And now we've got the new investigative. So I think I've told you this though, but so I was a retail manager for 20 years and I hated it. But when I graduated high school, I had gone to college. I wanted to be a homicide detective. That was like my dream job. I wanted to be a homicide detective so bad, but then I was making such good money. And I was 19 and I was like, this is good money in retail. I don't need to go to college. That's just stupid. So I made the decision and I quit school and and became a retail manager and did it for a long time, made really good money, and was like, I don't like it. So I actually left after I had little Jeremy. I left and I was like, I'm going back to college. Went back to college and got my degree in criminal justice. I finished that off and got with my minor in forensic studies with a specialty of IGG because it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So that's where I'm at. And then I ended up here. So,
which, I mean, I consider us to be adjacent. You know what I mean? It's like the stuff that we can do now, you know, and it's like, I know I've got a voice and I know my voice is being heard. Like I know in terms of the defense side of it, I know that they've heard me, like for facts. Like I know Brad and Andy know I'm out here stomping for them. You know, I mean, I know, like I'm aware that they're aware, and you know, and that's important to me because I care about what's going on right now because I care about the Constitution. And it matters for all of us. It's like if you're like predating my Delphi coverage, this isn't some new thing for me. Like go back and listen to my podcast starting at season 1. I've been like just yammering about the Constitution and how much it matters to us as citizens from the get. And if you want to understand how our process works, listen to my podcast. It's like, I call it, it's your favorite time. It's my favorite time. And then whatever legal thing I'm going to describe, I break it down in layman's terms, and people, it's a good pod. And like, because the one thing I figured out being a lawyer about my clients is that they just didn't understand the system. Like they would walk into a courtroom and they'd be like, oh my God, like we'd walk out and they'd be like, so I didn't understand one thing that you people said, like when we were up at the bench, can you decipher it for me? And at that point, like when you're talking about people that have never been in the system, it's overwhelming. And then when you're talking about our, you know, us as consumers of true crime, like you're getting half stories or you're getting half context if you don't understand certain aspects of what's going on, especially in the judicial system, which always gets short shift. You know, it's like when you look back at content,
it's very complicated. And there's a lot of different, to quote Doug Carter, there's a lot of tentacles when it comes to the judicial side. So it becomes very confusing and convoluted, and it's hard for people to follow.
100%. And on top of that, when you look at the content that we've been consuming for the last 20, 30 years, it's all coming from the state. Like you see the detectives, you see the cops, and you see the prosecutors. And then typically they throw in some shitbag defense attorney. So that's why everybody hated defense attorneys for years. Like my job going in was to change people's views of what we do in the process, which I've done. Like the thing that I always feel the greatest about is when people and it's like, just go through my Facebook group. It's like, oh my God, I couldn't stand defense attorneys until I listened to your podcast and I understood now what they do. You've completely
get a bad rap.
There's nothing more fulfilling for me than reading that. It truly, because it's like I've changed the narrative because it's true. It's like to me, there's nothing worse than a prosecutor that has just screwed up a case. They got the wrong guy, and like it happens. But when they don't own it and they just allow somebody to,
they just double down.
Oh my God, they double down, and it's so repugnant to me. I'm like, what are you doing, man? I'm like, we all make mistakes. It's like, it's okay to own it. It's okay to be like, oh, all right, man, we got that one wrong. We're sorry. You know, like here, we're going to have to throw some money at it because we can't give you the years of your life back. It's the best we can do, you know, but like,
if you survive.
Own it at least. Yeah. You know, and I'm not talking about cases that are like still like controversial that we really don't know. I'm talking about where clearly somebody didn't commit the crime. Like they got like DNA, vaginal DNA sample of semen from somebody else that when they ran it initially, there was no match. And they get the match years later. It's not the dude clearly. And they get a match and they find out who is the dude. And yet they fight it. And we're like, all right, you know, it's just like stuff like that is like,
sorry, the evidence was against you. And that's just your own fault. We can't control that.
That was sorry. Yeah, it's tough. And it's like, I get it because from that side of it, and I talk about it all the time. It's like, even talking with, like, we talk about Delphi and we've got, you know, Abby and Libby's families who are relying completely and totally on what law enforcement and Nick McClelland's telling them, that they got the right guy. And then they're sitting there seeing the same stuff that we're seeing come out from the defense, which, again, love it or hate it, everything that is based on evidence in that memo came from the discovery tendered to the defense by the state. They're not making it up. None of it. They're interpreting it just like the state interprets the evidence when they look at it and come up with their theory. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm always trying to tell people. I'm like, look, like, until this thing goes to trial, all you're hearing are two theories of a case. The state's theory, you read it in the PCA, and the defense, we just saw their theory of it in their memo. And like, people that are all like, oh, they're poisoning the jury pool. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you think a PCA is? Like,
true. Well, not this one, because I don't think it could do any good to anybody. But that's neither here. But I think that this theory isn't even the defense's theory, and I think that's where I try to like let people know. Like, they're always like, "Don't you guys trust the cops? Like, why are you guys so anti-law enforcement?" And I'm like, but this is actually a law enforcement theory. It's Click, Murphy, and Ferency's theory. So why doesn't anybody else trust law enforcement? They spent their blood, sweat, and tears to come up with these persons of interest for these girls, and they just got told, so, sorry, we don't know what to tell you. We're going this direction, and we're not going to tell you why. So it's not even just the defense's theory. It's the investigators' theory and what the evidence was supporting for them, and it never had an ending. It's just gone.
That's what I'm saying. That, like, it came directly from the law enforcement investigation. It's like, they're not making shit up. Jackie, would I blame Logan like any common sense person, or maybe the Odins or Keegan Klein? As far as that goes, what I wouldn't do is blame Rick Allen. As far as like, because if I was privy to the evidence, I'd answer that question for you, but I'm not, and I'm not a speculator. I'm sorry. What I can tell you is, based on the evidence that I've seen, I am not comfortable saying that I feel like Rick Allen is the correct person. And that's all I'm willing to do. I like at least three of the people that the defense named in the memo. I like them to be looked at more thoroughly by law enforcement. Like, I just think that needs to be investigated more thoroughly. In terms of Keegan Klein, the one thing I'll say is no. Sorry, I just like that dude wasn't doing like. I'm not saying that he wasn't contacting him. I think that was established as there was some kind of contact.
Listen, I don't think he's just not in the physical condition to be.
He's not that guy.
He's not out there. He's not the guy. He's just not the guy.
He's not the guy.
So BH wants to know, what do you think? What do you think that the Supreme Court's going to come up with? What do you think they're going to say?
And you have to look at the totality of the circumstances. Like I was starting to get worried. That they, I know you were. The easy
then you were worrying me, and then I'm like, I don't know, because now Kara's worried, Bob's worried, I don't know.
I know. So I had some smart people talk me off the ledge about it, you know, and I think ultimately, if they get to the merits of it, I think that Baldwin and Rosie will be reinstated, because again, it's not about those two guys. I mean, for me personally, I want to see them in there because I think they're both excellent defense attorneys. I really do. And I think that they'll put on the case that needs to be put on for this guy, because the one thing that I'm telling you is unequivocally, both those guys believe that Rick Allen is innocent of it. Lawyers don't fight like that if they're iffy on it. Yes, we always have to zealously represent them, but if they do the work like that, that is indicia of a couple of guys that are like, holy shit, we actually have an innocent guy, which is like a unicorn. Like that, like that's the reality of it. In a case this high profile, they typically don't get the wrong guy. They typically get the right guy. So like for this type of case to actually have them get the wrong guy, and for whatever reason, they end up picking him up. And like, when you see what they're doing and the amount of work that has gone into what they've done. And it's like I was saying it last night, it's not just the memo. It's like they've gone through they were ready to go to trial January 8th, like legitimately. Like, and that, like, if you listen to my content from 5 months ago, I'm like, there's no way they're going. There's no, like, just based on my own experience, there's no way they're going January. They'll never be ready. So, and that was based on the fact that, like, when we were trying a very similar case in terms of timelines, number of victims was double, but it spanned years. It was a huge amount of evidence. There were tons of motions that had to be filed. There was no way that we would have gotten it done in a year. And these guys just put in the work.
They were ready.
Got it done. They're ready. And in light of that, I'm getting to the answer to that question. I think they're going to.
Oh, you're fine. I was just reading other comments. You're good. Keep going.
No, I
Keep
just wanted to make sure that our viewer knew I was going to answer. I think that she'll get removed, and I think they'll recuse her, and I think that these two guys will get reinstated. Or worst case scenario, what I think they'll do is that they'll kick it down for an evidentiary hearing. They'll assign another special judge to sit on the hearing, and then they'll order that they go through an evidentiary hearing to see if it reaches to the level where a judge thinks they could be removed. Like what I don't think is going to stand is the status quo. Like, I completely disagree with Brett and Alice. I don't think that that's the right move. I don't think that the leak even comes close to reaching that. I don't think that it was a leak in that sense. I don't think it got to the world at large. I'm so tired of people I've heard of people that have seen it. I have not actually seen any of it myself. I haven't had, and I'm very deep into this case, and I haven't had anybody come up and like, yo, you want the stuff? I would say, no, I don't. I have no interest in the crime scene photos. I'll wait till trial and see it there. Like people acting like these are classified documents where you have to have some kind of special security level in order to see it. That's not what it is. It's crime scene photos that are going to be used as evidence in the trial, which is public. Now, is it going to be televised? Probably not, but it's still going to be accessible to the public. Like in Garcia, they let the press come after the case was over and they photographed everything they wanted from the evidence. Like it's going to be out there. Like this is
where people struggle, because it's an emotional situation, and it is. Right. I mean, obviously, like my kids, I don't want their pictures out there. I don't want people. 100%. I wouldn't want people seeing like that. Yeah,
no way.
But in the circumstance of these types of situations, this is part of what happens. It's part of the evidence. It's part of what everybody is going to ultimately hear, see, know. Depending on the state, some of it gets released. I mean, we just had a trial this last year with Gannon Stauch in Colorado. His crime scene photos were sent out with the FOIA requests.
Yep.
So, I mean, It's tough because I know that there's like the emotional side to it, but there's also the factual side that this unfortunately is the truth. And this is what happened to these victims, regardless of what victim it is. So I don't see it as a big deal. And I know that sounds really bad to people.
It doesn't, though, because I think that it can be done in a way. And I think that the way that the true crime world is trying to slide into being more ethical goes right to that subject matter that you're talking about. We have to be cognizant when we're covering these cases of the victims and their families. And it goes right to that thing. And it's like the producers of content, it's up to them to have some morals in terms of, okay, I don't need to show this because it's not relevant to the story beyond what I can already describe by viewing it myself. I don't need to have it just for shock value, because it's not adding to the story. You know what I mean? But and I think that we're moving that way as a community, as a true crime community. Like kind of the crew that I run with is like, we're super, super cognizant. And I try to be a very ethical creator in terms of being super aware of the victims and their families in terms of what I'm producing, always being respectful. And I think that we can do that as a community because we don't need to put it out and be trash, because that's the way I feel about it. But like you said, I mean, the fact of the matter is just go on Discovery ID, look at any old content. You're always seeing bloody crime scene photos. It's like, it's just the way it is, and I'm hoping
the state of Florida has set out bloody crime scene photos before trials plenty of times because they have the sunshine law there. So Like
Exactly.
I FOIA requested cases that had never even gone to trial and still haven't, and I have crime scene photos because they send them in the FOIA requests.
And this
So,
case is different because of the potential circumstances under which the girls' bodies were left, to where the actual crime scene photos are of interest beyond just like purient interest, or like just being like a
right,
creep who wants to see two beautiful young girls who were murdered. Like, but
right.
you know, it's part of the narrative of at least the defense's theory of the case, that it was, you know, I've never thought it was like some real Odins going into, or they're gonna do a ritualistic, you know. I mean, I think it was
Right.
a couple guys that dabbled in it, you know, that had an interest in it, and like, you know, made runes just because it was like, you know, their
That's what I
version of,
think.
I don't know, you know.
That's
So
where
it's
I'm at.
like,
That's exactly what I think. I think it was people, whether I don't even know if it's technically the people who are practicing Odinism or Norse paganism or whatever category it is, whatever was put there is put there intentionally with a meaning of whatever that person who put it there has. So whether it is like I practice Odinism or I practice Norse paganism or Wiccan or whatever the hell I practice, it had something to do with me and it was intentional. Do you know what
right,
I mean? Like that, not me,
100%.
but me as the person.
No, I it's exactly what I'm saying. Like exactly what I'm saying. I'm not I'm a spiritual guy. You know, I don't really subscribe to any organized religion, but I certainly think that there's a greater power out there than me.
Mhm.
You know, and if there was like something that I found, like aspects of a certain religion that I found interesting, like if I found some kind of aspects of Buddhism interesting, which I do, like I think that meditation and just kind of like Eastern, like there's a lot of Eastern philosophy, which I think is super interesting. And I think that it's legitimately helpful. I think focusing on your breathing and meditating and taking a moment for yourself to kind of clear your mind, you know, is super healthy for us. And I think that there's something to that, you know, so like I can incorporate aspects of that, you know, and if you've got belief systems where you're looking at certain aspects of different religions and it resonates with you, like that's what I'm talking about. Like what, like if these individuals, if it's not Rick Allen that did this, you know, and that kind of stuff with runes and things like that resonates with them, no matter what their ulterior motive was underneath. Like if it's what the defense was saying, that it was racism. Crime Night, I love that question, and I saw it.
I was just going
And
to have you answer this one really quick because it had to do with what we were talking about, and I'll go back to Joe's.
it doesn't, libertarian. That's my point. It didn't hurt Richard Allen's defense at all. Because I took such great exception. I felt like it was slander when people were saying that Baldwin had like purposefully orchestrated the leak in order to push the Odin narrative. I'm like, that is the most ridiculous. Like, take it from somebody who's actually tried a case as defense attorney, not prosecutors. They never tried to get. We fight like hell to keep crime scene photos out, away from the jury, because all they do is turn the jury against our client. It all, like, if people see pictures of two beautiful young girls that lost their lives in a violent way, and they're looking at some dude sitting in a chair in the courtroom, all they're thinking is like, you're going down, motherfucker. That's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
So before trial,
somebody's going to pay for this.
Somebody's paying for it, and we like to trust law enforcement did the job right. So we think you're the guy. We don't really give a shit about what the evidence is saying. We think you're the guy. You're sitting here for a reason, sucker, you know, and you're going down. So we fight like hell to keep it out. And you know, it's like, it's always going to get into a certain extent. It's always the argument for us, is it more prejudicial than it is probative? Like, that is our objection to it. And we fight it.
You guys' objection.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a legitimate beef, and it is a balance, because we're like, look, we have to get some of the crime scene photos in. It's evidence. We have to show how the crime was committed. We have to show that people were actually killed. So it's got to come in. But like, where's that line? Where do we draw that line? Like, how much? So, you know, we always fight that. So that concept that Baldwin would have ever done that to prove the point that it was Odinism was ridiculous. And like, ridiculous. And like, when it's all said and done, whoever said that about him, you know, I hope he sees them in court, because it was obscene for people to be saying that. You know, but beyond that, Crime Night, it's like, the best way to describe it is to like stand in front of your like 12-year-old kid, like not flexing your stomach muscles and just letting your kid say, Daddy, can I punch you in the stomach? Sure. But you don't flex. And then you just let them like gut punch you like repeatedly. That's how it feels to be a defense attorney working for a system that is heavily, heavily biased towards the prosecution and the government. Not only biased, but they also have the resources. So it's like that's the best way to describe it. That's what it feels like. Allison and I came out of law school like we are gonna give the voice to the voiceless. We're gonna champion people that can't do it for themselves. That's what we're gonna do. And then you just start getting body blow after body blow. Like we're gonna fix it from the inside. We're gonna be in there. We're gonna do the damn thing. And you just get gut punched, boom, 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 over and over and over. And it's like, and it breaks your heart, and it crushes your spirit. And it's like, so that's how it feels, Crime Night. I hope that I was able to explain.
That's the most physically hurt. Like I'm physically hurt with that response. It's like that is like the
Teresa. I'm telling you, like it's truth. It's gospel. It's like it is. I say it all the time, and it is. I don't know that there's a tougher profession on the planet, because at the end of the day, like, and my father always told me before I got into the practice, he's like, look, the worst client that you can ever have is an actually innocent person, because
I can imagine
their entire life relies exclusively on you. Like 100%. Like if that person goes down, I've got to look at myself in the mirror every day for the rest of my life, while that person is spending the rest of their life in prison for a crime they didn't commit. And it's a heavy weight to bear, you know? So it's like, it's a rough gig. It just is, because you're dealing with people's liberty. You're dealing with their, you know, their lives in some circumstances. And, you know, because like most cases where they've got the evidence, most cases don't go to trial. People just have this misconception that everything's going to trial. Nothing goes to trial.
Most of them play out.
97% of stuff is played out.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like everyone's like, oh, like stuff that goes to trial, there's typically issues with the case where there is some kind of question as to doubt. Whether it's reasonable or not is what we're in there fighting about, because it's not like a open and shut case. And like anything that goes, of course, there are cases where I've had clients that are clearly guilty. They had the evidence on them. The cops did the job right. I've gone to my client and said, look, man, you know, like there's no shot here. Like you're going down on this thing. And they're like, I don't give a shit. I want to go to trial anyway. And I say, all right, well, that's your choice. So we go to trial, and I let them know. I'm like, you're probably going to pay a trial tax, because the judge is going to be pissed off that you didn't take a deal and you forced the court to use time and resources to go to trial in this case that's open and shut. So I'm just warning you now, you're probably going to get 3-4 extra years tacked on because you insisted on doing this, but that's their right, you know, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fight just as hard for them as I am for anybody else, you know, but that's not the norm. You know, I mean, the norm is a majority of our job is trying to get reasonable sentences, because like every crime isn't murder, people. Like there's hundreds and hundreds of other crimes, right? In our world it is, but there's tons of crimes that aren't murder. You know, that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So it's like, you know, it's a whole thing. Why does
Skip ask?
Oh, Skip, like,
you take.
Are you asking me to tell you what you already know, Skip? You know why? I mean, the whole thing was like, it was a sham. Like the whole thing was set up. It starts with her on the 17th approving the defense's request for cameras in the courtroom, and she says it in the order. Oh, well, you remember when you guys asked for, you know, cameras in the courtroom? Well, I'm going to put them in here for this hearing that we don't really know what it is, to discuss things. That's what the hearing on the 19th.
Never had any intention to go in there.
Dude, so it was like, so she has the cameras. She tells McClellan, get your guys ready. Like I was sitting in there when they all came in. They all came in unison. Liggett and Carter and the whole squad walks in right into the well of the courtroom, sits in the jury box for like an hour. You know, Brad's running back and forth between chambers and out to Kathy Allen. And I'm like, dude, this thing is like, this is a show of force. This is like an actual show of force. Like, to where as a defense attorney, I saw it. I'm like, I seen it. This is like I'm like, there's shit. I'm like telling Clee, my buddy Clee, who's sitting right next to me, and talking to Hennessy, and I'm like, dude, this thing, what's going down in here is crazy. You know, I'm like, this, like, something's going on back there, and I don't know what it is. It's like either they're getting booted off the case, or she's trying to boot him off the case, or, you know, they're dropping the charges against Alan. Something dramatic is going on, and I don't know what it is. You know, because I knew that it wasn't the Franks hearing. Like, I knew that they wouldn't bring them there for the Franks hearing because they would have had their witnesses there. They would have had the eyewitnesses from the bridge out there. Like, they might have been in the hallway, wherever. But, like, you just knew it wasn't for the Franks hearing, for that preliminary finding of the Franks. So, man, it was like the whole thing. And then now we've all read the transcript. You know, I mean, it's evident what happened in there. Like, everybody who's like, that whole thing where she was trying to be kind to them and give them an opportunity. That's not an opportunity.
People still think that, Bob. In fairness, there are people who still believe that
right
she was giving them. I know. I wasn't going to name names, but I was going to just say there's some people.
Dude,
there is. I don't know.
Man.
I don't. I literally said I just. Is there somebody who can explain to me how we're all looking at the exact same thing and we see it so differently? Well, because I'm like, I read that and I'm like, holy shit.
That is the beauty of being human. Like, I
know.
love that. I love that. Like, I never want there to be a day on the planet where all of us look at something and all think the exact same thing. Like, if that, like,
but I want it to be at least obvious. I wanted it to be like, it comes out and it's just clear as day. Like, okay, she really was, you know, like, as clear as it is to me this way, or as clear as it is to them that way. Like, I'm just like, are we reading the same thing? Are we even?
That's the beauty of it all. Like, we'll never, like, our minds all work differently. We all, like, and I always say it, we all filter everything that we see and observe and interpret through our own filters from our own life experiences. And that's that.
You know,
like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I can't change the way somebody like has grown up and what their life experiences are. And that's what's leading them to feel the way they feel about certain things. And that's their prerogative. And like, at the end of the day, the thing that I love about this is that there's going to be the Supreme Court who's going to tell us who's right, at least in their estimation. So if I'm right, I'm going to go to Brett and Alice and say, nanny, nanny, boo, boo. I was right, you were wrong. You know, so you know, and I fully expect them to do the exact
not answering the phone if they call.
Right. You know, so it's like I just, you know, it's like, but like, I love the human condition. And it's like, I always say, like, on my channel, I'm like, man, I'm not trying to censor anybody. You know, you don't have to feel how I feel about it. I always, as long as you're cool and civil,
that's how I am.
Not being ugly and calling people names and being childish. If you're coming in with a strong argument and you feel that, because I'm never talking about the facts of the case, because we don't know the facts. We don't know the evidence other than what was in the PCA. I'm talking procedurally, exclusively, like we are right now. We have to wait till trial till we can start talking about the evidence and like whether or not he's the guy. Like right now, I'm talking about the Sixth Amendment and constitutional rights. It's like, because that's what's in play right now. That's all we're talking about. That's all I ever talk about. Like, the time that I talked about the evidence was when the PCA dropped, and I gave my opinion on it, and I've stood by it. It's weak. It's weak as water. I don't give a shit what, like if people think it's strong, cool. Like, I've practiced for 20 years. I know that unspent casing, and I had Shay on last night, and I wanted an Indiana lawyer spitting it. Like, what is that evidence in Indiana? Because it's different state to state in terms of how that type of evidence is accepted in a court of law. Because it's like, is it science? Is it real science? When Allison was asking about, you know, whether it's a Daubert thing or a Fry thing, and those are two Supreme Court cases wherein we determine whether or not scientific evidence or what is purported to be scientific evidence is legitimate, you know, and it's a test that has been developed by the Supreme Court to see whether or not it is legitimate. What's up, dude?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Sorry.
You're good. No worries.
Well, tell her to go up to your room and watch your own TV. You don't have to sit down there. You act like we don't have 10 TVs in this house.
She just keeps saying that. She thinks.
All right, I'm on a live with people that are trying to hear us talk about important life things.
We care about what's going on with her. We care about the television.
She was putting her mom on blast because she's down there watching Love Island.
Oh, no wonder she's putting her mom on blast.
I mean, that's why she's like, Mom's watching Love Island. I'm like, what? This mom's.
My
like,
little one comes in to complain about popsicles and wanting bologna sandwiches literally at least once a week.
I mean, Scout's 11 going on 12. Well, Scout's 11 going on 30, but, so she's like, but, that's like, what do they call that? What is the, like, it's people like their secret, like the secret little thing that they watch? Guilty pleasure. She watches that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, how do you watch this stuff? But then I'll get sucked in, like I'm sitting there like,
it happens every time.
Love is Blind. I hate this show, but now I've watched like 3 episodes, so I have to watch it all the way through.
Is there another season? We should watch another season.
Right, I get sucked in all the time. I talk all kinds of shit and then get sucked in. So,
Yeah, but then you just sit there and talk shit. That's exactly what my husband does. And he's like, well, I don't understand. Why is this girl doing this and that and the other? And I'm like, how do you even know that's happening if you're not paying attention to the show?
Oh, exactly. Or, or I'm trying to figure everybody out. Like, I'm like, I always consider myself like an expert at the human condition. And I can like I always tell Allison, I'm like, I can spot a sociopath in a crowd instantaneously. Like we were at like a music festival in Colorado. We were with a bunch of our buddies and I told Allie and I saw one. I'm like, oh my God, there's a sociopath. I'm like, I'm going to keep eyes on this guy the whole night. I could just sense him. Like I could see the way he was looking at people all alone. It's kind of like weaving.
He was alone.
Yeah, he was by himself. This guy, like, I'm just telling you, I'm like, I'm going to commit that. Like if I could sneak a picture of him, I'm going to take it. So when that guy gets arrested 6 years down the road, I'll be like, remember that dude? But that thing,
you're like, that's the guy. That's the guy that I saw.
That's the guy.
That's the guy that I saw. And now look at him. Now look at his mugshot. Let's do a side by side.
I was right. All right. All right. What do we got?
Hold on.
Let's see, I'm going through.
Can he even go to trial on the January date since they booked Woodhouse's trial that day?
No, I mean, the one thing that they won't grant, if they do grant the other 2 things being pull and go and reinstating them, they're not going to give them the 70-day trial. The whole speedy trial thing is a nightmare. Like Rick Allen's speedy trial, right, has been obliterated, but like by no action of his own. It's like Gull, like to me, it's the most egregious thing. Like when they came in, and I've been putting this theory out there because I think it's 100% true. I think that when they advised her that they were ready to go to trial January 8th, it like completely took her by surprise. Like she was like, what?
Oh yeah.
Like she was like every other attorney in the world that was like, there's no way this thing's going January 8th. It's like, I see it all the time. Like I thought there was zero chance.
You didn't think it was going either. So you're like, yeah, totally.
Zero chance. Like when I heard that, and I knew that they meant it, and I heard it from people that knew that they meant it. They were legitimately ready to go to trial January 8th. It blew my mind. And if you're Judge Gull, who's been sitting on pending motions and has a whole bunch more that she has to hear in 2 months, the thought of that was a nightmare for her. I think that is truly the impetus of why she did this. I don't think it's because she thought that they were actually... Well, I think she used that as the excuse. I just think it was Nick and her. I think both Gull and Nick were not prepared. The proof he didn't even have is the fact that he brought Luttrell on. Like Luttrell just got brought on October 31st. He was
technically the 19th. He got to sit in on the little meeting they had.
Right, exactly. But he entered his appearance on the 31st. So it's like that shows that Nick showed his hand there. I mean, and I had been saying, I'm like, where is Nick's co-counsel on this? Like, he can't do this thing alone. It's way too big of a trial.
Well, it was supposed to be Shane Evans.
Right. And I don't know what happened with that.
I don't either. But
I mean, he left his political life to come back and join the fray. And then just like, boop. Guy probably realized.
Well, he probably has to take on all the other cases now because they didn't get him to take a plea deal, which I think they thought they were going to be able to do. And then that's why he wasn't going to get a special prosecutor, and he was not worried about it. And then when he realized on October 4th that they weren't getting the plea deal and that they were ready to go to trial, he was screwed, and he called up Luttrell and he was like, hey, I'm really going to need some help here to make this happen because they're ready to go to trial in January and I'm not. They didn't even have the discovery ready.
I know. Anyone who thought that all right, so let me just explain to people. There is no attorney in the world that is competent on the defense side of it that would ever suggest to their client to take a plea deal or entertain a plea deal if they haven't seen all the evidence. It's like, you want to talk about incompetence, you want to talk about ineffective assistance of counsel, that's that. You do not encourage your client to take a plea deal when you haven't even seen all the evidence. The concept of that is absurd. So like I reject that whole plea deal thing. That thing, like whoever came up with
that's the rumor, is that they were offering him a plea but he turned it down.
Who started that rumor? Because I'd like to have a discussion with them and teach them.
Who started the leaks?
Yeah,
it's all the same people. It's all the same people.
Come on,
I'm going to put this up there, but do not feel obligated to answer this question. I just like.
I have no idea. I don't know the man. I don't know the man personally. I know he got hair plugs. That's the only thing I know about Nick.
Did he really?
Yeah. Like somebody showed pictures of like I saw a picture of Nick pre-hair plug, and then Nick post-hair plug. I mean, they look great. Fine. Like I'm not casting shade on the guy. I mean,
he's got nice long hair now.
Yeah, I mean, those are all hair plugs. Well, the stuff, the party in the back is natural, because he had malprair and baldness, so that the long just stuff in the back.
Just shave it. Once you're there, just let it go.
At this point, he's dug in there, Teresa. He's dug in. He went and did that thing.
He's dug in. Okay, let me get back to. Hold on. Let me get back to the questions. I started a whole bunch of them for you, and here we go. Bob and call sign. Thank you very much for the super chat. But Bob, what's more? Defendant is guilty, tells the lawyer, but still wants defense. Is guilty, lies to lawyer, or innocent? How do you tell the difference? Doesn't matter.
Let me read. I want to understand it. So just so you guys know, and I think that like the first rule of criminal defense work that my father told me was, I never ask my clients if they did it ever. So like when I have a client come in who's not in custody, I don't ask them, did you do it? I'm your lawyer. You have to tell me the truth. That's TV shit. So in real life, what I say is, and it's worded carefully. I say, okay, well, what are they saying that you did? So this is before I have the discovery. This is on like an initial consult. So they'll tell me what the cops are saying that they did. And it's different because I'm not asking them, did you do it? Did he do it? Did he do it? I'm not asking them that. I'm asking them, what are they saying you did? And the reason for that is twofold. One, if I come up with an alternate theory of defense, I can't put them on the stand to suborn perjury if they've told me a different story. So I don't want to know. And two, it doesn't matter. Like you said, it makes no difference. Right. My job is the same either way. So I don't need to know whether they're guilty or innocent. So in terms of, like what happens in reality is I get the discovery in, because typically the guys come in and say, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. And then I get the discovery and we pour through it. And then I call my client in and say, all right, man. So I know what you told me when you sat initially. This is the evidence they have against you. See this video that shows you like stabbing this person on video? That's bad evidence. All right. So that's a real problem for us. So if they like it, and it's typically not strong evidence like that.
That's a real problem for us. I'm not really sure we're going to work around that.
We're probably going to plead this thing out, man. So but in a case where they have a lot of strong evidence, in most cases are circumstantial. Like this misnomer that circumstantial evidence is weak is ridiculous. Most cases.
I tell people that all the time. People want direct evidence. And I'm like, you realize when we talk about how bad eyewitness testimony is, that is actually direct evidence. And then everybody's like, well, we need DNA. And I'm like, that is actually circumstantial evidence.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
That's like, people win on circumstantial.
Correct.
I'm like, that is absolutely crazy to me.
Well, people don't understand it because they think, well, they left the DNA on the person, but like what you don't get is unless you have somebody who saw it or a video of that person leaving it on during the commission of the crime, it's not direct evidence. Direct evidence is somebody seeing it or it being caught on video. So there's direct evidence of the crime actually taking place. Anything that is a clue or that leaves you in a position where you think, okay, well, that must have been what happened. Like I always use, I think on my last live, we talked about the snow analogy. You go to bed,
I use that one.
like you look out your window, look at your yard, there's no snow. You go to bed, you wake up, snow covered lawn. You're like, oh, it snowed last night. You didn't see it, but you see that there's the evidence of the fact that it happened, unless a movie company came and like they were shooting a scene there and they used a snowmaker.
And as a defense attorney, the movie company came and that's how the hell you have snow everywhere.
That's how I defend cases, right? I got to come up with an alternate theory. So, and most people aren't buying that shit unless I can come up with evidence and show a contract that yes, we were on this street. We contacted, the local authorities and let them know we were going to be filming on the street. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's how circumstantial evidence can be very, very strong. And it typically, in most cases, it is. And it's where it gets into the whole Occam's razor.
It's connecting all the things. Yeah, you got to connect all the pieces. If you can connect all the pieces, and that's where I tell people I'm at, because I'm not innocent. He's innocent or he's guilty yet. I don't have the pieces don't connect for me currently. So I'm like, of course he's innocent because he is an innocent person. But until there's some more connection with the timing and the way that things flow and how he got from point A to point B and how he became that guy, like the guy. I have to have more. That's just it for me. Well, and I know there's people
everyone should. No one should have a final opinion on this case. I don't care whether you think he's guilty or innocent. No one can have a final opinion until we hear all the evidence and it's vetted at trial. Period. You cannot know that he's guilty based on the evidence that we've seen and the interpretation of the state until it's vetted at trial. That's a fact. If you feel that way, that's your prerogative. All I ask people to do is don't make that your final opinion until trial, until we vetted the evidence. And that point, if it substantiates what you believe, good on you. Then you got it. They got their guy. Like for me, I lean heavy innocent because I think the PCA sucks. I think their evidence in terms of what I've seen sucks. And I couple it with the fact that I know what it looks like when two defense attorneys believe with everything in their being, two guys that have seen all the evidence. It's a huge clue for me. It's a huge clue when I see two guys that I know are competent attorneys that have both been practicing for 20 years, that have both tried big cases, that are both trial lawyers, that have gone through all the evidence, that are fighting like this between the PCA and what those guys are showing us by the way they're fighting, number one, during the case, and number two, to stay in the case. That tells me that Rick Allen's probably an innocent guy. So could that change at trial if they have super strong evidence? Of course, because I always reserve my final opinion until when I see the evidence, when it's been vetted.
Well, we know that they had at least 2 evidence dumps from the time that the memorandum came out on the 18th to the time that they were removed. And we know they weren't even able to get through all of that yet. And they thought some of it was repetitive, which it probably was, but I'm
sure it was.
But they still had more.
Oh, and like people, you've got to understand, like in a case, so the Anthony Garcia case that Alice and I handled in Omaha, Nebraska, very similar. 2 double homicides, 5 years apart. One of them was a brutal slaying of a beautiful little 11-year-old boy, the housekeeper. That case went cold. 5 years later, the double homicide of a married couple. They make a connection with Creighton University. They find a guy who happened to be my client that had like beef back in 2001. So 7 years had passed before, the first homicide takes place in 2008. And then another 5 years passes. So I had essentially a case that had spanned 15 years in time. And, same thing as with Delphi. They had a tip line. This was like a bedroom community of doctors and lawyers and, just like upper middle class folks, that this kind of thing never happens in that neighborhood. It was shocking. Everyone was horrified. They got hundreds and thousands of tips. And so like when we got the discovery, we got everything. They're, you know what I mean? So it's like we're having to sift through things that are completely irrelevant, that were leads that they followed up on that had nothing to do with it. I mean, so you have to go through every bit of it because you never know what you're going to find. So when they were saying the needle in the haystack, the way that they stuck like the Odinism shit with these 5 different guys like all over the place, you know, whether that was intentional, probably. You know, but they certainly weren't sticking it in like in one section. Like, oh, here's the
nothing was in order.
Nah.
Well,
know,
no,
so
the Purdue professor, they just put an interview with Jeffrey Turco. They didn't even put that he was the professor. Nothing. They just put his name. Interview with Jeffrey Turco.
Well, it was like our case. We discovered after the thing had happened that there was another case with a super similar MO, where the killer had left the knife impaled through the victim's neck, which was the case in our first set of homicides, which our criminologist expert, this guy Brent Turvey, he's like, oh, that's a signature. Like that, like so. We just happened to find one document in our, like, one singular document in our discovery from the feds where they had you know, the unsub, and then they were looking at this other case. We're like, what is this Joy Blanchard case? So Allison starts digging in, and she finds that this case had occurred 4 months prior with almost that they were looking at them as all a set. That they were looking at the Brumbacks, the Hunter Sherman murder, and the Blanchard murders as potentially the same killer. By the time we got it, they had whitewashed all, like there was no mention of Joy Blanchard anywhere except for that one document that we just happened to find. So we had to fight like hell to get them to, because that case was sealed because it was cold. That was another case that had gone cold. And we're like, oh my God. So like, because Allison found an article, like in the, like after we found the name, she's like Googling it, finds it. She's like, oh my God, this thing sounds exactly like the same thing. And it's a cold case. And it's like the exact same MO. So like we had to fight like hell to get that file in order to try to see if, like, oh my God, is there a connection here? So we start comparing all the different people to see if there's crossover or any kind of, like, dude, it was like the amount of investigation that goes on from the defense side of it. We don't know. I mean, like what the thing with Allison and her getting removed from the case, which I'm not going to spoil her because it's like that's coming up in our series, but was a whole thing, and it was related to that. It was related to that. So, you know, and it was DNA. So it's interesting, but yeah, that case was something else. It was so similar in so many different ways with like the removal, and it was easier for them because we were admitted what they call pro hoc vice, which means that we were out of towners that had, you know, asked for temporary license to try the case in Omaha. We had local counsel. They abandoned us. They're like, oh, you know, it's like we got hometown hard, and they hated us because we were, you know, Chicago. They're big city lawyers. We hate them. Oh, $20 holler from Tammy McCrae. You're the best.
Good for you.
When Baston wrote the second letter telling Gull about the abuse and injuries he sustained in retaliation for the first letter, asking her to report it to the proper authorities and help him, does she have a legal duty to report? I mean,
that's a great question.
It is a great question. I think what she had was a legal duty to make it part of the record, which it is essentially reporting. Like she's not like a mandatory reporter in the sense, like if you've got a school child who goes to, you know, with clear signs of abuse at school, and you've got mandatory reporters like teachers, or if they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, okay, I can see clear signs of abuse, I'm a mandatory reporter. She doesn't have but I think she had a duty to place that into the record, you know. But I mean, ultimately this guy's beef is going to be with, you know, like in a civil court on a 1983 claim, you know, for his violations, you know, because it's like, people just have no idea. Like the general public, and I'm thankful for this, have no idea what it's like in prison. Like people that just think that it's like, that shit's real. Like if you like, when you hear about like people that have, you know, caused harm to children, just being like their life in danger every single minute of every single day in prisons around this country, it is gospel. And I'm telling you, in a case like this, they don't care about the presumption of innocence. I've said this for the past month over and over and over when people are just dismissing the fact with relation to these confessions that these two guards could have been like, yo, dude, like, because they did it to Garcia. Like, they want these guys going down on it, whether it had anything to actually do, even if it's like a tangential, like just a complete, like, tangent collateral relationship in that, you know, there's this angle here. Like, I don't even have to go to the point of like, oh, they're part of that crew and they were forcing him to, you know, basically confess to these things. Like with Garcia, like he kept telling us, he's like, they're trying to get me to confess to the crimes. They keep telling me to confess to the crimes. Like they want that. It's like the same reason that prosecutors sometimes they'll put plants in jail to get the guy to fucking talk.
Oh yeah.
They do it, but it's like, it's the same concept. So for people to be like, oh, like jail guards would never do that. Like, what the fuck? Pull your head out of your ass. Yeah, they would. Not only would they do it all the time. So it's like,
yeah,
like, and that's the thing. Like I've got to hear what the things sound like. Like Allison's been saying this forever. It's like, we need to hear what it sounds like. Is it like the context of it? You know, is it like, is he giving details? Or is he just like, Kathy, I killed the girls. Bye. You know, and Kathy's hanging up. You know, or
so
is it like,
you were at the hearing when they talked about this, and weren't you where they had the warden come on and the guards that came in, and
yeah.
So I have some questions about that because, you know, she says that in part of her responses, Judge Gull's responses, is she's stating that they were lying and embellishing things, and they were basically proven to have lied by the witnesses that the prosecution called, and by the prosecution, they were proven liars. So sitting there in the courtroom, what did they lie about? What was the lie? What is she calling them on?
Nothing. Like the lie is that she's accepting the warden's testimony, his self-serving testimony. Like you have to live in a world in which you believe that a warden of a prison, which is known to be incredibly abusive, not just on this case, just like Google the place. Like it is a hellhole.
Yeah,
it is a bad place. So you have to live in a world where you're going to believe that a warden is going to come on to come onto the stand and admit to them abusing Rick Allen in order for you to believe that they were lying. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like everything this guy was saying was self-serving. They said one thing, he'd say it's not true. And then he'd say, oh, no, he has a mattress. Oh, no, we feed him. He's on a hunger strike. Oh, no, we wash his clothes. Oh, yeah, like all that shit. It was like all self-serving. So like what these guys are going by is what their client is telling them. I don't get to go do tours. I don't get to hang out with my client in his cell. Like when I go for my jail visits or my prison visits, I'm put in a conference room. I sit there and I wait. And then they come in and they bring my client in, they put him down. I have no idea what's going on. Like we have the same shit going on with Garcia. In our case, the guy lost his mind. Like he had him 23 hours a day in a cell. Like he was like if people don't think that you'll lose your mind, go put yourself in a windowless room that's 6x6 for 23 hours a day, just for a week, and see where you're at mentally. Now turn it into like for Garcia, it was 3 years of 23 hours a day with no human contact, constantly being psychologically abused by the guards and inmates, and see where you're at mentally. And so Rick Allen at that point was 8 months into 23 hours a day, plus whatever the hell else is going on in there. So, you know, so what they're saying in terms of their pleadings are they're saying they're repeating what their client is telling them is going on. That's not lying. Like that to me is the biggest thing that shows her bias. Like her saying that they lied or were being, whatever her terminology was, they were, you know, like that they were making up things in the pleadings was obscene to me. Like it just, they're
embellishing or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly.
It was stronger than embellishing. It was like, you know, and then like McClellan has the balls to sit there on the 31st and call Brad Rosie a liar, just like flat out in open court. Like if I were to sit in open court and cast that kind of shade on a prosecutor, the judge would be like losing. The prosecutor would be like, oh, oh my lord, what do you know, like just like I can't believe like you like that kind of shit. I'm like,
You just became. Well, I don't even know where they're from at this point. That your prosecutor just became
like some kind of British, like
England.
old, like
Yeah.
like powdered wig bullshit. Like we're beyond
What are you
reproach. We're the
doing?
prosecution. We're the royal crown. How dare you, sir? Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. You know, but like it's treated that way. It's like if you're in there,
Right.
and we like Alice and I have experienced this firsthand on many occasions. If we cast shade on the cops or the prosecutor, like in Garcia, we filed a motion to DQ the prosecutor. We're like, this guy like is out of hand. Like he's acting like he's having fireside chats convicting our client.
You're out of order.
Yeah,
You're out of order.
The whole courtroom's out of order. It was
The
exactly
whole
like
court, the whole trial's out of order.
it was
I
definitely
thought maybe I
some
still had it
Al
up.
Pacino
but I
shit.
couldn't.
Yeah, I love it.
It's a great one. You know, YouTube
good.
tried to copyright strike me for playing that for Delphi.
I remember when you did that.
I fought
I
because
mean,
it's
like,
the best. It
whatever.
literally fixed this. It's like, no, you're out of order. All right, let me see who's next. I thought I still had it up, but I don't have it up.
Copyright shit. Like, who's making a claim? Like 20 copyrights.
Well, they have
20
bots. So there's bots that are going to do it, and so I just go in there and I'm like, okay, I literally played it for 20 seconds of a 3-hour live. Like it's not it's not my content. Like I didn't just go put it up on my. So I'm like,
well,
yeah,
my buddy Jay, like he got he got demonetized for like, and they're claiming that like his shit wasn't original content because he was a trial streamer, you know, but he was giving commentary.
But it's commentary. He talked throughout the whole thing.
And they just demonetized him and never gave him a reason why. You know, it was crazy. And he'd worked so hard to build his channel.
Did he fight it?
Following. Yeah, he fought it as much as he could. And they're like, yeah, we looked at it.
Well, did he do the whole, like, you have to make a video and present like how you actually use the content?
He did all of it. He just had to start a new channel. He's like, all right. You know, which is sucks. Total bullshit.
All right, hold on, let me get to the next questions.
Okay.
So Julie Melvin, I don't know if you're familiar with who Julie is. So she's from that area. And so she was actually talking and had mentioned this when I don't know if it was when I had her on or if it was on her own channel, but was mentioning that she was talking with some Indianapolis police who were actually asked to come down and help like process the scene a couple weeks after. And they actually found plural, like that's what she's saying. Like there was like more casings that were actually out there. So Bob, there were casings plural out there that came from the detective that told me that he collected them. So this goes more towards this evidence because we're going to go talking about bullet stuff because a lot of people have some bullet questions that I starred for you.
All right. Well, here's the issue. Like without even getting into, you know, the legal efficacy of that evidence at trial and whether or not it's legitimate or whether it's junk science and how much weight they should give it. And then like, my problem was that these juries are going to give it weight. They're not going to give a shit what experts are going to say. If a cop gets up there or an expert gets up, he's like, yeah, it's a match. That sticks in the jury's heads. It doesn't matter. They don't listen to experts like people think they do. So like,
no, they need to have an expert that they like. If they like the expert, that's what matters.
It's still like to a certain extent. I'm just telling you, like I've put like amazing experts.
You've done it. I haven't. So I'll go with what
they X each other out. They always do. Cause you got two people and when like both sides are like, oh, your guy's a lackey for the state. Oh, your guy's a hired gun. You know what I mean? So like they know.
How much are you making per hour? How much do you make per hour? That's literally the question every time. I'm like, they're all getting paid. Why do we care? We know they're getting paid.
You're showing the bias and you're showing that they're going to say whatever they were paid or are hired to say, you know, and the same goes for the state. If people like, you have to understand when they put experts on the state, they're typically state employees. So they are hired by the state. They're being paid by the state. So they're state employees. So, you know, as far as the real issue for me, and this goes to Julie, what Julie's talking about is from what I hear and from what I saw in the memo, when you strip away all the Odinism stuff and you look at the things that they're talking about regarding the evidence, you have a real problem from the state's perspective with the chain of custody in terms of where did they find the bullet? because they're talking about there's only one picture of the bullet, and it's with some dude holding it. There's no picture of where they found it. There's no picture of where it went after that. Like, a chain of custody is so critical because otherwise you have the Stephen Avery key case, you know, like my whole like thing on the key and the Avery case is like, I think it was probably planted, but I don't think that they planted it. I don't think that that's what the case turned on. I think that they believed they had enough evidence. I think that they believed that Avery was the right guy. And I think that they thought that, you know, because like Kratz, the prosecutor in that thing was like, you know, in there they had kind of a chain of custody. The thing that they had to overcome there is we had plenty of pictures that were taken of that room, of that area where the key's not there. So all of a sudden on like the fifth search of the house, this key appears like out of nowhere. Like when they're claiming they're shaking the little cabinet and then it pops out of the back. And, you know, so it's like, that's what the problem is with the chain of custody and this bullet. Like if like, believe me when I tell you folks, that lack of chain of custody will be hammered by the defense at trial if the bullet survives. And I agree with Shay. I think basically that's why I was asking him what is the current temperature on that you know, bullet evidence casing, like unspent casing in Indiana. He's like, well, he's like, I think they'll make it admissible. You know, so it'll go to what they call the weight of the evidence, and the judge will give an argument or an instruction to the jury about, you know, you give it the weight that you deem that it should be given. You know, it's like you shouldn't make it a super powerful piece of evidence because it's not that, you know, it's not unequivocal. You know, it's like whatever the expert's going to come up and say, yeah, you know, in my subjective opinion, you know, because you're asking a jury to understand like what that means. What does that mean? And like you're okay, so that's your opinion. Well, what does that mean in terms of the case? Like, is it everybody's opinion or is it just your opinion? You know what I mean? And like, how is a jury supposed to know that? You know what I mean? So as far as like, if it does get in, they're going to attack the hell out of the fact that how do we know that that's not the bullet that you found in this box in Rick Allen's, like during the search of Rick Allen's house, and that you just took a picture of it over a, you know, like a field and said that it's the bullet that was found between the girl. I mean, without the chain of evidence,
right.
The chain of custody.
Well, without the chain of custody, if there really isn't, can it actually even be admissible still without that?
I mean, they'll allow it to be admissible, but it's trial shit. They're gonna let the defense will attack the hell out of it. You see it all the time, like when every trial you watch and you see them attacking the investigation or lack thereof, and there is no such thing as a perfect investigation. I mean, the cops do the best that they can. You know, we're not robots. Right. We're all human beings. You're gonna miss shit. Nothing's gonna be perfect. You're always gonna get a guy that forgets to put, you know, footies on and is walking through the crime scene. Like shit like that just happens, and it's not intentional, and it doesn't always necessarily destroy the crime scene. Sometimes it does, you know, I mean, but it's like, it's got to be vetted, and you've got to look at all that stuff. And especially when it's like what the state considers to be a crucial piece of evidence, they're going to have questions to answer. And I don't know that they'll be able to answer them. You know, where are the photographs? It's like whoever, like, you know, like I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, well, we don't have crime scene. You know, we don't have evidence guys or evidence techs that follow us around and mark the spots. Because typically, you know, if you have a bigger jurisdiction and you've got a bigger department, they're going to have like evidence techs out there who, you know, put those little yellowed numbered placards down, like wherever they find evidence. They got something over here, you know, number it, tag it, bag it, and take the picture. This is where we found it. Take the picture where you found it, and then you move on from there. So, I mean, I think it'll be an issue. Like in exactly what Julie was saying. I mean, they'll be able to put on evidence of other cops. Like I guarantee you, if Brad and Andy are part of the defense, that they're going to find these cops that are like, hey, we're on that field. We found a bunch of casings. I mean, it's rural Indiana. People shoot guns all over the place. It's like, it's like people hunt.
They do.
People shoot. That's what they do. You know.
That's what they do. All right. Tornado. So what about you got it? You like to read them to soak it in.
Yeah, no. So, what about the chamber meeting with Allen and the defense for the money for the bullet expert? What happened with it? Nothing. So, I mean, they were going in because we have an indigent client, which means that you're going to the county to fess up some money so that you can hire experts. So it wasn't ruled on. It's still pending. That's the answer. It's still pending.
It's still
But they
just
asked
sitting
for
there.
it. It's still sitting there. Yeah.
Is that another motion then that the new defense is going to have to either adopt or get rid of?
Yep. They like you're never forced to adopt a subsequent attorney's work product, like, because you might have a completely different theory. It's like you can't be beholden to some other lawyer's work. We all have, like I was saying, we all have different minds. We all think of things different ways. Like Alice and I
mean, I would get that with the defense theory or a defense strategy, but when it comes to like the motion limiting about the bullet itself, why wouldn't they adopt that?
Well, I'll tell you why. Like, this is where the thing with Scremin, where he's on the news talking about when the PCA dropped and talking about she asked him, well, what do you think about the PCA? He's like, well, they got some strong evidence. They have him down at the bridge with multiple witnesses, and they've got this bullet, So like he's kind of giving you his mindset that he thinks it might be problematic, strong evidence. Now, does that mean that should mean that he's going to try to attack it? You always try to attack the strongest evidence the state has, but it also shows you he in his mind thinks it's strong evidence as well. So he's not going to go in as aggressively as somebody who thinks it's junk science. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's problematic. It's worrisome. Like, I think it's junk science. I don't think that anybody should ever be convicted on some bullshit like that. Back in the old days when they used to call it ballistics and not tool markings, like when guns were all handmade, like every barrel was different. Every barrel had like very different defects because they were all handmade. Now it's all machine made. So everything comes out of there. Does that mean there can never be a defect? Yeah, of course there can. But for the most part, no. They have quality control. They're looking for defects when they're going out through the line, when they're being made. So like they want everything coming out uniform, so it's like, you would think if you're worried about law enforcement and that lobby saying, okay, well, we still need to be able to try to figure out what weapons, what bullets come from what guns. So like but that would require the manufacturers to have like an infinite number of like dyes or whatever they're melting smelting the metal in, so that they all come out with just one little different piece. Like there's one defect in every single barrel that we put out, so we can always identify.
But when did that really start happening? Because I'm not a gun. I don't know a lot about guns. That is not my forte. Sniper here. Sniper here does all my gun stuff. Every time I have a question, I just ask Sniper, and he'll come in and help me.
I can tell you, when Sniper, I've never shot a gun myself. I've shot guns twice. I'm not a gun dude. Like what I know about the science of it is based from my experience. And like I'm always screwing up terminology. Like, is it a cartridge? Is it a shell case? Is it a bullet? So gun experts are like, dude, don't be an idiot. That's a cartridge, not a bullet. It's not a case.
Not a bullet.
Like I guarantee you, Sniper knows
that
more.
I know.
So let's see.
Tell you, out of all my forensic classes, that was the one I hated the most, was when it had to do with ballistics and bullets and all of that. I was just like, and all the guns and how do you know the difference and all the ammo. I'm like, shit, I can't do this. I hate it.
That's not my jam either. It was like what I learned from my experts. You know what I mean? Like stuff that I don't know about.
Me too. I learned from Sniper.
Yeah, like I hired a former former SEAL as our expert in Garcia because we had some gun stuff in there. Guy knew his shit. So everything I learned, which I then forgot, since I tried the case. So like I would always defer to people that know more, because I'm smart enough to know when somebody knows something more than I do. And so I always accept that and thank them for the new knowledge, So thanks, Sniper. Because that's not really a question. That's a statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Just letting you know, pass it to you. So I'm passing it to you. And I'm telling you, like, if I literally, even if he's not commenting in chat and I'm like, Sniper, I have a gun question, all of a sudden there's Sniper and he can just help me out.
See, like, so I've been seeing this thing. I don't know if it's true or not. Like I've had multiple people saying it like that. Like that's the kind of shit that I just can't, like, until Until trial,
Or
I don't know
something.
whether it was found weeks later by non-law enforcement. I've certainly heard this. If that's
I
the
have. I've
case,
heard both.
I've heard both too.
Well, you are
And if
familiar with
that's
the
case-
thumb drive map, correct? The thumb drive map that was released to Brandon Woodhouse, and it's got like the index of discovery that was, you know, that Baldwin had at the time. So the rumor is that on that thumb drive map, it states that the bullet was logged on the 15th. Just an
that
FYI.
doesn't mean shit. Like that, like when
What doesn't mean
something is
anything because
logged-
nobody can tell me a month. So the 15th of what month? Just letting you know. If it comes
Well,
up the 15th.
And the other thing I would say is, you know, if that particular thing is true, then like, how can they say it was found in between? Like, if that comes to be true, then yeah, it's inadmissible because like
We know that they didn't find it when they found the girls. They did not find it when they found the girls. They say that.
Right. Well,
They use different wording.
Right,
And upon further investigation of the crime scene.
They say like that it was found between where the girls were found.
Right.
Like you know, the location where they claim to have found it was allegedly for, you know, like in between where the two girls were laying. So, you know, I mean, like, but that's like what I'm saying, man. Until trial, like I'm not going to speculate on it because I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like I'm just not willing to do it. That's for y'all out there. Y'all can argue about that shit.
That's what we do. All the sleuthies.
Yeah. I love it, but I'm waiting till trial because I don't know.
All right, let me get you the next ones.
Okay, Bob, you find it problematic that MP did the grid search and search for 2 weeks straight after the murders and picked up everything but a leaf per her own words. Yeah, I do. I mean, how could I not? You know, I mean, it's like 100%. I find that problematic. I mean, like Barbara McDonald's telling me, like, she's like, they didn't pick up and like they didn't even like take any of the sticks into evidence, like none of it. Like, you know, they went back after the fact, but like it's like, what? How do you like anything that potentially has any DNA that's laying on the girls' bodies, you take into evidence and you test it? Are you shitting me? It's like when this stuff comes out, they're going to get hammered. Like whatever deficiencies there were in the investigation. And it's like, you know, I've read Mike Thomas's complaint, you know, in his civil lawsuit. And, you know, to me, it sounded like he was saying, look, I think we should get some more experienced people in here to be doing this because I don't think that we're up to the task, which is a very fair assessment. And that certain people took great exception to that. And a guy who had been doing it for 25 years and seemingly had done it pretty well, as he was the, you know, the deputy sheriff. Like, I just like, I don't know, you know, like again, when everything comes out at trial, we'll know a lot more, you know?
All right. So I know this is going to be another that you're going to say you're not going to speculate, but I'm still going to put it up here for you.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard it. I've heard, you know, I saw the art of, I forget what Frank calls his channel, the art
of deduction.
The art of deduction. Frank, I think Frank is like, I don't know if I don't think he thinks this. I think Frank thinks that RA is the guy. You know, so Frank and I have not a meeting of the minds on that. Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea how they got down there or if they were down there. I've heard it all. I've heard that, you know,
I've heard both. I think that's all just theory.
The dude I was on Crime TV with Court TV with the other night. This is his theory. He's like, they weren't killed during the day. They were killed at the night. Yeah, that guy, whatever his name is. Yeah, that guy.
He's the author. He's the author. He wrote the book.
He's the guy who solved OJ. That's like the first time he ever came to me, like non-Delphi related. That guy's like, he messaged me. He's like, hey, dude, it's like I solved the OJ case. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. I'm like, what you got? He's like, yeah, I did a documentary on it. And frankly, I watched it and it was kind of compelling. So, you know, like there was a serial killer active in that area, and like his thing was that like Nicole had hired this dude, and his brother had basically thrown his serial killer brother under the bus and said that he's the guy who did it. So it's like, I mean, he does, he digs in, he's like,
Well,
he's,
yeah,
he-
he's another.
he's an alternate,
Definitely
he's an
digs in.
alternate, yeah, he's a big alternate suspect guy, which,
Well, he thinks it's Ron Logan. He wrote a whole book on the fact that it's Ron Logan.
correct.
So, yeah, and then he's also, well, that's a whole nother, once again, another subject. So USA Libertarian has asked me this a couple times. I haven't started. Sorry, I wasn't able to get to you, but I know that you keep asking. So I just want to let you guys know, if you guys are asking questions, I am starring them, trying to group them together so that I'm not jumping all over topics for Bob and they kind of stay together. But what if Gall colluded with the prosecutor? Like, what if, and how would we ever even know? Like, who's ever going to look into the fact that she would have had some type of ex parte communications with McClelland to get him to bring all these people there?
Right.
And I have to back up that question with the fact that in those emails, she states to them that she's under the impression that somebody like Rick Snay and Kevin and Anya would have been, interviewed about all of this. But when and how did she ever find out about Kevin and Anya? Because they don't have their conversation until the 10th, and she's sending that on the 8th. So there's no communication in this email thread with all of them. They don't have their phone call till the 10th. And how does she know anything about Kevin and Anya?
Those are all.
So I mean, is there not a way to prove it?
Those are amazing questions. I think they're germane questions, and I think they're questions that should be asked. If you look at things just on their face, and I'm in no way suggesting that Gull is in collusion with McClelland, but when you look at things at face value and you do that kind of deduction in terms of how things were known to the judge, short of ex parte communications, it begs the question, and I'll leave it at that. Like in terms of how is that going to get uncovered? It won't.
Yeah.
I mean, it just won't. It's like it is frustrating. And like, to me, the strongest implication is the fact of the first thing that you said. How does, when all that is allegedly known as to what that thing was on the 19th was a meeting to discuss issues. That's what it was called. How does Nick McClelland know to have everybody ready? Because to get 9 cops ready and, getting their, like, cops have what they call key dates, like dates that they are available to be in court where they'll get paid every month. Like, for cases I've got cops, whether it's a DUI or whatever, like some smaller misdemeanor case, like, oh, what are the cops' key dates? Like, and these are the dates. So they're in court on the 17th and the 28th. So I'm like, all right, I'll take the 28th, So it's like to orchestrate and coordinate that all these guys be ready means that, either he knew something that Baldwin and Rosie didn't know, or that Gull knew something that Baldwin, like somebody knew something that these two guys didn't know about what was going to happen that day. And like, you can't look at it any other way. Like I thought that show of force of like having the camera put in there, having him like just parade these guys into the well of the courtroom and sit there for an hour, just all, hey, how you doing? How's it going? What's happening? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? It's like nodding heads, looking stern. Nick McClelland's just sitting at counsel table like this, like a statue. It's like Baldwin and Rosie are getting their asses reamed back in chambers and running back and forth. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, the answer is that,
but they weren't even just there for that part. They were there hours early, and she knew they were there hours early. And she tells them that she apologizes that he had his witnesses there hours early. But what witnesses? Witnesses for what? For what hearing? This is just a regular old status hearing talking about issues that have recently arisen. Why you got anybody?
That part's easy to explain. She just goes, McClelland goes back into chambers and says, Judge, I like for this thing, for this discussion we're having, I decided to bring a bunch of witnesses. And, if we're going to go, I'm not saying we are. I'm not I'm not implying, Judge, that you're going to do a sua sponte motion to DQ these two guys, but we talked about it. I thought just in case that's going to happen, I better bring my witnesses. But the problem
it's not
with that,
regular witnesses. It's like a Doug Carter kind of witness. Come on.
The problem with that explanation is that she already had her bullet points written out to where she handed them over to him, and she's telling them, like, after she pretends like they're going to be involved in the case when they're talking about housekeeping material in the beginning of that hearing, where they're saying, oh, moving forward, we'll do this. And she's, oh yeah. The whole time knowing she's shit canning him. And then, and then she says, well, this is your choice. We're ready to go. We got witnesses out here. I'm going to take you out here for a public fleece. I mean, I don't know how you can't think there's some kind of collusion there. It just stinks of it. I hope that Scoyne like talks about it. It acknowledges that they have some serious concerns with how this went down, because the thing that's going to matter most to them is that transcript of what happened on the 19th and how things transpired. And you're going to have some pretty bright minds up there in the high court.
Right.
That it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this, and it begs the question: how did people know certain things? How did you know to have that set up, Nick McClelland? And like, that's why I'm thinking, like, we get, like, Scoyne's going to want those answers, and they're going to kick it back because they want the hearing to find out, and they're going to expect Brad and Andy and Hennessy to ask the questions. How did you know? Like, that's why, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like the Judge Newman and the Murdoch thing with the Becky Hill, the clerk of court talking to the jurors thing. Like, I think that Newman potentially is a witness, and just like I think Gull is as well. Like, she has to be made available to be cross-examined because she's got to answer that question. I think the defense has every goddamn right to ask her that. How did you know? Because I'm going to read right from the transcript here, Your Honor. Right after you faked like we were going to still be a part of the case, and then you dropped the hammer on us, knowing what you were going to do the whole time, and you tell us that you got the witnesses ready and that you're going to bring us out there and fleece us. Where is this communication? Where is that email? Can you show? I want to subpoena your phone bill. I want to see if you had a conversation with McClelland ex parte. You know what I mean? So it's like, I could see
that'd be the only way we're going to be able to find that out.
It's the only way it'll happen. It's the only way it'll happen.
So Laura's asking, can their emails be FOIA requested since they're actually state employees?
I mean, it'd be a fight. I mean, you can ask to say they're confidential or not necessary.
You'll get your typical.
You'll get your quash subpoena shit going. Like, it'll be a brawl,
And this is a great question because this is one I have. Why would Doug Carter be there? What the hell's Doug Carter investigating when it comes to a leak?
Who knows?
What's he going to testify to?
I think the bigger question is why the hell do any of the agencies that have a vested interest in seeing this particular individual convicted, because this is who they've decided to hang their hat on in terms of him being the guy, which means that they are completely invested in Rick Allen being convicted. Who are these clowns to be out there investigating a leak? Like talking about biased. Like, you needed a completely independent investigation that was not these dudes, because these dudes are going to do everything.
Bob. Nick himself said, I spent the last 17 days investigating it when there wasn't even a leak yet.
I'm sure you did that math.
Oh, I did. Absolutely.
Yeah. That math don't math.
No. So he's investigating a leak before he even knows a leak's happening? And why the hell would the prosecutor, instead of preparing for trial, be investigating a leak? Don't attorneys have their own investigators that work for the attorneys? Like, you have an investigator. Why would you be spending time doing that?
I think Nick McClelland made 3 phone calls. That was his investigation. That was
he got a phone call. You mean?
Yeah. So right. They're asking you, Sniper doesn't want to ask me, so you have to answer this question. There you go, Sniper.
If Ari's attorneys are reinstated, do you expect them to file a Brady violation against Doolin and other LE involved in the Snyder case. Do I expect them to? I don't think that RA's attorneys would file Brady violations having anything to do with the Snyder case, but could they? So Jesse Snyder's case, are you familiar with that case?
Yeah. I mean, if
okay.
there has to be a connection. They have to be able to make a connection. That's
well, I mean, the connection is that Doolin was, said to be planting evidence, and him and his merry gang of misfits were causing issues with Jesse Snyder and got him wrongfully convicted. But I don't see how that would. I don't think RA's right. I don't think RA's attorneys can file anything on that.
Yeah, in a Brady violation, in terms of, like, to me, the bigger question about Doolin is, how he's sitting there on the 17th in that press conference, 2 days removed from talking to Rick Allen, like talking to him face to face. And like, they're blasting the picture of the bridge guy up on the screen, and old Dan Doolin, it doesn't ring a bell. Oh, hey,
and he didn't get fired.
Holy shit, man. I just talked to a guy. This guy was like, this dude, Rick, I just talked to this guy 2 days ago. Like that doesn't fucking dawn on this guy's, like, in his brain. Come on, man. Like, something about that is so off. I can't.
That was for you, Bob.
Oh, thanks.
Sniper said that was for you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, look, dude, I had a discussion about some potential Brady material arguments. I don't like. It's a tough argument, and I know what you're saying. It's like in all those cases where where one case stinks because it's been poisoned by an investigator that's done dirty. I mean, it certainly requires it to be looked at, and I think that every case that like those investigators have had their hands on have to be re-examined always. Like you always see that. Like as a defense attorney, I'm always like, if I hear about some cops that did dirty that were working on a guy, like one of my clients' cases, I'm like, oh shit, now we got to dig in. We got to re-dig in. But you typically need a couple, 3 cases, before they'll start, in Brady material, and somebody asked it and we didn't really address it a long time ago. It's just like, how did Rick Allen fall off the radar for 5 years?
Yeah.
Talking about some crack police work there. And it goes right back to the Dan Doolin thing. Sitting there on the 17th. Oh my God. I just talked to this guy. We wearing the same shit. He was out there. It's like, how didn't that happen? I don't understand it. It's crazy to me. I don't get it. I'll never get it. Well,
because Richard Allen did not tell Dan Doolin what he was wearing that day. All he told him was that he was out there.
Right. Isn't that enough?
So
around the time, and like in different times, different time frames.
So why would Baldwin bring a lawyer?
Well, who's that? Well, what do you mean? Why would he bring a lawyer? All right. So this is
a big thing, because everybody's like, obviously they knew what was happening because he brought a lawyer. Why would he bring a lawyer? And there was another attorney I was listening to, and he actually brought up the fact that Baldwin was Mirandized when he was brought in for questioning. And Rosie, and when he said that, I'm like, I remember Rosie saying, I told him I didn't need an attorney. I had nothing to worry about. And then I was like, well, no wonder he brought an attorney. He was Mirandized.
Well, beyond that, like, they're having these conversations where the word DQ is brought up. Like you guys have to understand, like attorneys that do this for a living, and you have that conversation on the 12th where the judge is saying that McClelland wants to and may be bringing a motion to DQ you, you'd have to be an absolute fucking moron as an attorney to not be discussed. Like, if you don't think that Brad and Andy were talking about the potential that they're trying to kick him off this case. So yeah, well, they are, like, every single day, like, and she's telling him to stop working on it. So yeah, you're calling the baddest dude in Indy, who's been doing it for 40 years and kicking ass and taking names. I mean, the guy's won 100 murder trials, and you're saying, yo, I think they're trying to boot us on this thing. They haven't, like, they haven't given us notice. I mean, we don't know it's official, because Like, that's why they like read the pleading itself. It's called the potential disqualifying. Like they didn't know. That's not how the answer is. That's not how due process works. That's not how proper notice works. Just because they're smart enough to have somebody say, okay, well, just in case they're actually going to do this without giving us notice, let's prepare something. And Hennessy's, like, I'm sure it was Hennessy's idea. Like Hennessy's probably like,
isn't that what he told you on your podcast?
Yeah.
That he was like, they keep saying he hired an attorney, and he was like, I'm the one who was like, no, I'm going with you.
Right, 100%. So I mean, like, the due process law matters. You just don't blindside lawyers like that. I'm sorry. So like, and I can't tell if that person seemed like that. That question seemed geared towards that they think that was sufficient notice, and it's not. Like, and I'll let the Supreme Court. I hope they get to the merits, because that will quiet a lot of people. That's how due process and proper notice works. Like, if she was going to have the hearing, she couldn't have had it on that day. She would have had to have given the defense time and Rick Allen notice that she was going to be DQing or trying to DQ her lawyers, and that they were going to have a hearing about it. That, like, because it's at the end of the day, it's not about Baldwin and Rosie. It's about Rick Allen. Like, if you always keep that in the back of your mind, that's who's constitutional. Because it's like, as much as this is about trying to obtain justice for the girls right now in this phase of where we're at in the justice seeking process, it's all about Rick Allen and his constitutional rights and making sure that he gets a fair trial so that the victims' families don't have to go through a second trial. And I will tell you right now, and just don't take my word for it, removal from chosen counsel, removal like that is like an automatic, like, boop, we're sending it back. So like, if they go with Scremin or Labredo or another lawyers come in, and he gets convicted, it's getting kicked back on that basis. Like, you just like it, these things that she's claiming just don't add up. And it's like I always listen to Brett and Alice, like, just screaming about how horrible the leak is, and they're just like what my grandmother used to call it is like wringing the pathos out of it. They're turning it into like an emotional thing by talking to their listeners and appealing to the emotional, the ugliness of the concept of that these pictures could be made public, which would be torturous to the families, which is obviously 100% true, which is disgusting. However, the fact of the matter is the law doesn't care about emotion. Like, that's not the emotion has no place in the law. Like, we tell the jurors, you cannot make your decisions based on your emotions. You have to rule on the facts. And the facts of this is that those pictures never made it out to the public in mass. They just didn't. It's like whatever people saw them, like, it just wasn't a leak like that. So right now we're left with, because had it like been a leak like that, I think there's a much stronger argument, not as to they should be removed because they're incompetent and they allowed the leak to happen, but because the leak did happen on Baldwin's watch. And now Rick Allen's right to a fair trial has definitely potentially been heavily damaged by the fact that these pictures are out there, going back to what I said earlier about how hard we fight to keep that out, because that would certainly taint the jury pool, without even because they're just going to associate those horrible pictures to the guy they have in custody. So it taints the pool. So like, that would have been a different thing. The fact that we're not having that discussion tells you all you need to know about that leak. It just, it didn't get to that argument. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. No one's making that argument because it never got there.
I don't disagree with you. So that was the person who had asked you the question. So
it was an ambush, Goose. You're talking about two different ambushes. So did they go to the courthouse knowing that there was a potential that they were going to be trying to do something about DQing? Yes. Yes, they did. Again, they were smart enough to know that it had been mentioned. Again, they would have to be idiots not to do something, to talk to somebody, to prepare something, not knowing that it was actually happening. That's where we're having a disconnect. The way that the law works is they have to give them notice. Proper notice. And so where the ambush is, not back in chambers, where the ambush would have been is if she had gone in and said, you know what? Because remember, this was not really Rick and Brad's or Andy and Brad's choice. It was always the judge's choice. If the judge had decided, I'm going to have the hearing, and then she goes in there and they've got 9 cops in there and they're ready to go to hearing, that's where the ambush happens. Not back in chambers. They knew that there was something going on. The ambush was the fact that McClellan was ready to go to hearing with 9 cops, and these guys were given no notice to prepare to go to hearing. That is a legal ambush. It's a complete and total ambush. And I promise you, the Supreme Court of Indiana will feel the same way. You have to give them notice. The only thing that she could have done is gone into that courtroom and said, okay, this is what's happening. We are going to, I'm filing, is the officer of the court. I'm doing what they call a sua sponte motion to DQ these 2 gentlemen. I'm giving you 14 days to prepare, and we're having the hearing on it. 14. They had to give them time. She had to give them time to prepare for it. She had to give Rick Allen, remember, he's the guy who matters at this juncture, his rights. She cannot remove his counsel of choice without notice, without giving his attorneys the ability to present their side of the case in terms of that particular issue. So that's where the ambush happened, not back in chambers. They clearly knew something was afoot because she had said it on the 12th, and they were smart enough, again, to seek counsel. You know, it's like any lawyer that is in that position, because they have to be witnesses in that case. So they have to have another lawyer put them on the stand. You can't, they couldn't have Brad saying, okay, Andy, you get up there. I'm going to question you. And then we'll switch. No, you get a third attorney like Hennessy, and he puts those guys on the stand, but they have to give them time to prepare for it. That's all I'm trying to say to you. That's where the ambush.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If she told them on the 12th that to cease working on the case, would them working on this part, like about the leak or about being disqualified, would that still be considered working on the case? Would they not be able to do that either?
Well,
you see what I mean?
First of all, they don't work for her. They are not Judge Gull's employees. She had no right. They work for Rick Allen. She can't tell them not to work on his case anymore. Do you guys understand that concept? Like, they are not employees of the state. They are not employees of Judge Gull. They're people that are representing a criminal defendant, and their job is to work for Rick Allen in his case. Now, they're appointed, and they're getting money from the county coffers, but these are 2 private attorneys that have their own firms, and their duty is to their client and their client alone, period. They have no duty to the judge, and the judge has no right to tell them they can't work on their client's case. It's that whole thing, or her saying that. I can't wait to read the language on that. Like, I would have completely ignored her. I've been like, what? Like, you're telling me not to work on my guy's case? We're trying to get ready for trial, and we're going to trial January 8th. I'm working on the case. Sorry.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is like, so do they have to listen because she's the judge? Do they have, or do they just do whatever the hell they want to do?
Your question. She
doesn't. I know. That's what I would. That's my,
yeah, no, like, no, I would still be working on my client's case. That's who my duty is. Can you please remind people what the original purpose of that hearing was? A lot of people seem confused. Which hearing? On the 19th? No one knows.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, the 19th.
Like, do you have the document? Put it up. Like, show, like put up that minute order. Like, the minute order tells us all we need to know about what we don't know what that day was supposed to be. You know, like, we have no idea what that hearing was supposed to be. To discuss different issues is like what it was.
Discuss things that had recently arisen.
Right. That was a motion to discuss motion to discuss things that have recently arisen motion. It's not a thing.
Okay, so did they not send a doc to the judge 1 week prior asking what was the chamber meeting about? The judge replied something to the effect, just be there, then says you should have read between the lines. Well, Rosie actually asked her what the hearing is about. Like, what should they be prepared for the hearing? And she says, hey, come a little bit early, whatever time, noon or whatever. Come early, we'll meet in chambers and we'll discuss it. But don't work on the case until then, until we discuss it, essentially. Is that your
Yeah.
interpretation?
That was my right. Like Brad definitely said, well, like, what are we doing here? Like, I mean, that's
Right.
what I'm saying. Like, she sends out this completely ambiguous, like minute order, like typed in minute order of like what's going on. And like, he's like, okay, well, can you tell us what we're doing? Cause like that court date, like appeared out of nowhere. Like the date, the 31st had been set. And all of a sudden this date appears for the 19th out of nowhere. And she doesn't say what it's for, you know, and the problem for Gull is that her entire docket looks like that. It's not just the 19th. It's the fact that they had the ballistics motions in limine was never set for a hearing. You know, she's on the record saying that she didn't even finish reading the memo, and it's been filed for like a month and a half at that point. She hasn't looked at any of the evidence that was attached to like, dude, I mean, it's like everything that's going on.
She had no intention of having those hearings.
Apparently.
But that's my personal opinion.
I agree. As soon as she found out that they were ready to go, I'm telling you, like, this will never come out. As soon as she found out that they were ready to go to trial on January 8th, she became just absolutely adamant she was getting these guys off the case. She had to. There was no way she would have had to work through the holidays, which Judge Gull being on the bench for all those years is not working through the holidays, my friends. It's not happening. And Nick, poor Nick wasn't going to be ready. Poor Nick, he's over there by himself.
No, he doesn't even want to work 40 hours a week. What are you talking about? The guy goes in front and talks about how he's overworked because he has to actually work a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
That's what he tells them in front of the committee.
Read between the lines.
Instead of
That's what you do for a living. It's what you do for a living, sir.
So you're a lawyer. Is that your job? Is there a job description that says, as a lawyer, my job is that I should be able to read between the lines when judges tell me to do stuff?
When we take our oath, when we're sworn in by a Supreme Court justice, they say, I swear that I will always read between the lines. Always. It is my job. Yes.
So she talks about that, or, you know, I think it was either her response or the Attorney General's. I don't remember which one, but they talk about that, the notice that they were going to re-up Richard Allen's right to a speedy trial, that was never actually filed in court, never filed in the trial court. So it really should not even be heard for anything. But I want to make the point that, you know, she talks to them when they're in chambers and Rosie's telling her, well, you know, we didn't know that this was happening. And she's like, well, I told you guys on the phone that I was considering disqualifying you. And he says, but that's not on the record. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, so that, like, there was still nothing that actually says that that's what you were doing. She's like, yeah, like essentially. So it's still part of what you're doing.
Her answer is actually true. True.
So she makes the decision that they're still going to be disqualified because she kind of told him on the phone she was considering it. So then my thought is, if they're having this conversation on the 4th on the phone and they're letting Judge Gohl know that they're going to be going forward to trial, that's her record. She considers talking on the phone and having, you know, these conversations off the record as a record. So then that means that he did file a right to a speedy trial because that's how she keeps a record.
Yeah. And like, as far as, right. I mean, that's a great argument. Like if what's good for the goose is, I mean, it's a good for the goose, good for the gander situation. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Well, we mentioned the speedy trial demand, so that means it must be filed because that's how you operate. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
We read between the lines and we figured out that this is exactly how you operate. So we're going to go ahead and say that that's just done now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that argument. So Adjusted Fate asked at 750, would Hennessy be willing to pick up the case in Andy's place? I would love it. He's handling his last case, which is a triple homicide, and then he's retiring. And I'm like, Dave, I'm like, Hennessy, dude. I'm like, if these guys if they don't get reinstated, you got to pick it up, bro. He's like, oh man, it's like I can't do it. He actually
he's not. He's retiring.
He's 100% retiring.
He's got a big ass case that he's going out on though. So I hope
that's what I'm saying. It's a triple
homicide. Yeah. But I'm just like, I hope you win just because that's your last one. But then I'm like, I don't know, the guy really could be a bad dude, and then I probably don't actually hope you win.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I like that. So I hope you win.
Yeah, I mean, when Hennessy gives that, like, throws out that I've won 100 murder cases, it's like the first thing people are gonna be thinking, God damn, he must have got a lot of murderers off. You know what I mean? Like all of them can't be innocent.
He said that he tried 300 murder cases.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a PD for like, it was like forever. Like, you deal with, like, you do trial work as a PD.
So as you're sitting here saying they're not all murders, I'm saying that Hennessy's going to sit here and say they are all murders because he's tried 300 of them. That's crazy.
He has won 100 murder cases in different ways. You can win a case
right.
in a lot of different ways. You can win.
Right.
Yeah.
But he said he went to trial for 300. I'm just saying. Yes. That's a lot of freaking cases.
There's a lot of murder trials and a lot of murder.
That's a lot.
A lot of murder.
No wonder the guy wants to retire.
A lot of murder. So, you know, as soon as that story broke this morning about the other Indiana cases, you know, I immediately started Googling where, like, Arlington, Indiana was in relation to Delphi. It wasn't close. It wasn't close.
It's not.
No.
Laura asks if a plea deal is considered a win.
What? Laura. No. I mean, in this case?
No, in general, when you're talking about that there's a lot of ways to win, she's asking, like, would a plea deal be a way to win?
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be. I mean, if I've got a case, like, if again, in a murder case, if you can get them to drop it down to, like, if they're coming at them for, like, murder one or you know, like a heavy duty, like first, second degree murder charge, you can get them down to, like, a manslaughter. It's definitely a win. You know, I mean, if the facts warrant it, you know what I'm saying? So yes, 100%. I consider, like, if we negotiate a good plea for our client, I 100% consider that to be a win. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, a huge part of our job is trying to make the punishment fit the crime. And sometimes, you know, when you have young, inexperienced prosecutors, not just in practicing the law, but in living life, you know, it's tough that are fresh out of law school and they're chomping at the bit to put bad guys away, that just don't have that life experience and can't use that to you know, reflect on in terms of, like, people kind of, like, will screw up in life. Like, we don't necessarily want to, you know, I'm not necessarily talking about murder. I'm just talking about, like, any type of case where I've got an 18-year-old kid that does a boneheaded thing and, like, they're trying to hang a felony on him. Like, okay, well, you realize that you're going to ruin this kid's life for one stupid thing that he did. Like, there's no malice. He didn't really hurt anybody. You know, like, let's figure out a way to kick it. Like, I'm not trying to tell you to cut him loose, but let's figure out a way that we don't ruin his entire life by hanging a felony on him so that he can never get a decent job. He can never, you know, do anything in terms of getting an education, bettering his life, because he's going to be a felon, you know? So it's like, and you run up against that so much, especially with younger state's attorneys. Libertarian, but he's screaming, or she's screaming at me, but she did tell him to stop working. It doesn't matter. She's not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me.
That is one thing.
Yeah.
That's what I've said my whole life. You're not the boss of me.
The duty is owed to your client. You don't have a duty to the judge. I mean, you have to show proper decorum in the courtroom, and you have to give deference to the judge. The judge is not the boss of you. Like she cannot demand that they quit working on behalf of Rick Allen.
So what do you think? Why do you think that she would just tell him that? Like, where did she come up with it then?
Wait, what? Like, the same place that she came up with findings without having a hearing. What?
Like,
she was. Like,
I keep saying, like,
she was running roughshod.
I'm not an attorney, so I'm like,
she was on that high horse, man, just throwing shit out there. Woo!
Is that what happened to her? Fell off?
I'm on my high horse. I don't know. You're asking me shit I couldn't possibly answer. I could never fall into the mind of Judge Gull. All right, Bob, is there any chance McClelland has held back evidence regarding RA and his culpability? In other words, not given everything in the discovery to the defense. If so, what are the legalities? Well, I mean, you got your classic Brady. You know, the challenging thing about the Brady violations is that typically we can't know what exists if we don't know it exists as defense attorneys. You know what I mean? That's why Brady material is always so slippery. Like typically they find out about Brady shit after the fact. Like sometimes like I'll find out about Brady material, what we think is potential Brady material, like interviewing witnesses, and they'll mention something that we are not finding in the discovery from a witness. And then we start digging into it. And then if we get to that other person and we find out that they actually did talk to law enforcement and we didn't get that report, that's one way to find it. But in this thing, I mean, I don't know, Crime Night. You know, I mean, like Brady material is the way to go at it. But in terms of whether or not they're holding back evidence, I don't know. I mean, he definitely slow played this like discovery, like in ways that I've never seen in a case like this. Like them not getting any of the later stuff until late August, which seemed to have the bulk of their theory of defense. It seems pretty shitty to me. You know, like it seems like it's a lot of gamesmanship there. And there is always elements of gamesmanship. And like, you know, I mean, no one's trying to do the other side any favors in these cases ever. You know, it's like that, like I always go in, I'm always civil. I'm always professional. If I lose a trial, I extend a hand. I say, you put on a good case, you know, but like, as far as, you know, dirty pool, it happens. Gamesmanship, it happens. And, you know, I mean, prosecutors are very driven by convictions. Like that is their primary motivation. And
they're not going to say prosecutors if they're not actually able to win any cases.
And it becomes an issue of like, how far is a prosecutor willing to go to get convictions? Like that's ultimately it. And I don't know Nick McClelland enough to answer that question. It's like I've said it in my pod. I'm like, you know, I've never really heard the guy speak on anything of substance. Like he could be a genius. He could be Clarence Darrow in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit for your approval. You know, I mean, he could be that guy, or the guy could just be like a
whole live just with impressions.
Yeah,
I don't really do. Now you got a whole nother channel to start.
I know, just do my voices. People like my voices.
I like add doing the videos of the people falling. Just add the people with the video falling, and then do your voices as they fall. There you go. And then it's $1 million idea.
I think you got a winner.
All right, this is for you.
Okay, does a mistaken email and theft of evidence equal the legal definition of a leak? I don't know that there is a legal definition of the leak. That's what the issue is. I mean, like a leak is a leak. Like it doesn't always have to be in a criminal case. I mean, leaks happen all the time. Like leaks can happen in the civil world. Leaks can happen within companies. You know, like a leak is where information that's not supposed to be made public is made public. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that the index that Brad or that Andy accidentally sent to the wrong Brad amounts to much of a leak. Like you're not like you're really like where Teresa was talking about, like, oh, you know, there's that one part of that. That's not my real Teresa voice. It's my general public voice.
You really got to work on that one. There's got to really work on the Teresa impersonation.
Yeah, Allison loves my imitation of her.
I was like doing
But like, you know, it's like you have to really parse and like reach to make index like where we're talking about with like when this unspent casing was you know entered into
it's on the 15th
logged. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got to really like, does that damage Rick Allen's case? No. If anything, it helps his case, you know. So like, remember, everything is against the backdrop of, does it harm Richard Allen's constitutional rights? Aspen, if the Supreme Court declines to the writ and Gull stays on, Rosie and Baldwin aren't reinstated and the speedy trial isn't granted, will you accept the decision, or is there next step? If so, I mean, well, of course I'll have to accept it. I mean, if the Supreme Court rules, they rule. Will I be happy about it? Obviously not. Will I be vocal about my unhappiness? Yes. And I think that if there is to be another move, it would have to go up to the federal court level, you know, some kind of writ of habeas corpus. So, you know, the question becomes, how long are Brad and Andy willing to fight. You know, it's like, cause they've got Kara and Mark, you know, doing a huge amount of work for them on their behalf, on behalf of the defense bar, not just of the state of Indiana. It's like if people wonder why I'm so adamant about this, and look, and just so people understand, I could become animated in a second, and then be completely normal. Like a lot of my animation, like Bob is like, really, man, he's really, you know, it's like that's just like I can act. Like I can be like,
I don't know who that was, but that
one
one was not me.
like totally
That one was
normal
not
in
me.
1 second. Yeah, like I'm good at that. So like people are like, man, Bob was so animated. He was like, really, but this thing and the attack on the defense bar in general really does hold a special place in my heart. I really am supporting the defense bar in general. I'm supporting these two lawyers in general, and I mean it. You know, from a very genuine place. You know, any way that I've been able to make myself available to Kara in terms of supplying her information about what happened in these hearings, what I observed, I've made myself available to her, and she's used that, and I'm happy to do it. And I would do it all day long. You know, they know that if there's any, and I'm their biggest champion out here, and I've got a voice, and I'm a voice that's heard, and I'm very like I do what I do with respect to this case and what I see is going on at the peril of knowing that I might ostracize myself from people that don't feel the same way. And for this issue, I feel that strongly about it. Like on my podcast, because remember, this is a business for me. So that should tell you, like in the podcast is my baby. My YouTube channel is my I don't know what you call it. I mean, I love it, but I don't love it like I like my pod. I started my YouTube to push people to my podcast. You know?
But since you have them, that would come off really bad.
Yeah, right. You know, so I'm just like, but like for me to like make a stand on this particular issue, knowing that I could be turning people off to my bigger project, which is my podcast, is a risk I'm willing to take because I do try to come at it objectively. So when I asked the question, will I accept the decision of the Supreme Court? Of course I will. I won't be happy about it. I'll have a voice about it. You know, do I feel that I've been helpful in terms of I feel strongly about what's going on here? I'm concerned about the Constitution of our country. I'm concerned about how it's being applied to defendants in general, but specifically to Rick Allen in this case. And I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I'm open to dialogue to anybody. I've been trying to get Brett specifically to do something with me live, and he hasn't turned me down per se, but I've thrown the gauntlet down. I'm like, dude, let's go. Like people
are waiting. Pick a different case.
No, like this is the perfect case. Brett and I can have
I don't know how you need a mediator.
Oh,
we need a judge.
We definitely need a judge, but like because him and I could have like it would frankly, as dug in as both of us are in our positions, it would make for phenomenal content. And like Brett and I are always going to keep it civil. Like Brett and I would never lose it. Like I would never insult him. Like we would never devolve. We do this for a living. We argue for a living. That's what I think gets lost on people. I am an adamant person. Brett is an adamant person. When we have our positions, we're going to argue the law. We're going to argue the facts. We're going to argue our position. We're going to shake hands. We're going to give each other a hug when it's all done. And then let the chips fall where they may, you know, like I keep telling like, this, it'll be, I would see the problem is like, I think Teresa's biased. We'd have to get like a truly, we'd have to get
Aspen would be more towards them. So then you'd have both of us. And then we would equal each other up. We would have to have somebody. I'm going to go on with Aspen and Sunny on Monday. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be fun.
It would have to be evened out. It would have to be evened out because I wouldn't want it to be seen as, but like, frankly, Allison and Al, like it's not just Brett and I.
Did you just try to disqualify me, like in the public? I think I was ambushed. You just did publicly in front of all my peers.
You've been gold. You've been gold.
I've been gold. Oh man. Okay, hold on. There was a couple more for you.
All right.
Hold on, I gotta find him now though. I lost him. Oh, Rico. Can they Rico anything here? Can anything get a Rico? Can we get a Rico around these parts on any of this?
Man, there's nothing I love more in a Rico case because they are just a clusterfuck. Scarlet,
Right.
you heard a bad word. You see her sneak in?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Amps Gray. I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
Hey, Daddy, can you read me the movies next?
I think your sister.
Me and brother.
All right, let me finish it. I'll think about it if you let me
No.
finish this.
Give me a hug.
Hey, don't breathe your sickness on me. She's sick and she's really. All right, dude. Enough. Like you almost tipped the world.
Aww.
I love you.
There's lots of love.
I do.
Lots of
adore her.
love.
She's my. She's
You
my.
How could you not?
Do
She's
you
my
want to see our
ace.
secret handshake?
No, we're not doing
Oh
that.
yeah, heck yeah. Sorry. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Aww.
All right, we done. That's it. That's
And
our
then we
secret.
have a short one.
Now it's not a secret.
Now we have a very short one.
Okay.
Just show them a short one.
All right, go.
That's our short one.
Amps Gray.
Isn't this on live? Everyone's
Yes, everyone. She doesn't care. She gives.
Now
She does not care at all that I'm on live.
Now if that handshake
Oh,
goes
I
viral,
was like, I can.
My daughter's a massive
Okay.
ham. If you can't tell.
Can I? I'm gonna clip that and just put it up all by itself, just the secret
Yeah, I
handshake,
mean-
so then it can go viral.
Right. It's not a secret. So, but I was going to say, you know, that the young slime trial, that Rico trial. All right, go. I'm serious. Am like the twerking's too much.
I'm not twerking.
Yes, you are.
I was bouncing up and
All
down.
right.
I'm
come
like,
on.
hey, look at a little twerking.
All right, come on. I'm trying. Please, I'm asking you politely. Go. Am's great. I'm trying to wrap it up. I'm trying to wrap. See, karma.
Trying to wrap it up.
All right. So listen. I mean, we're 3 hours in.
I know. Where's
all right,
Allie when you need her?
Yeah,
Allie's like, I'm done. Right.
All right, so to the Rico thing, Rico's tough and it's not applicable to this. I mean, like Rico, you're gonna have to do some heavy digging. Somebody's gonna have to do some really heavy digging to see what's going on. Is she still creeping around? Wow. a ham.
What? No.
Ham and cheese. Ham and cheese. All right, what will become the fact that the body discovery and the bullet discovery were at separate times? If the crime scene was not guarded between the two discoveries, anyone could have placed it there. Of course. That is the argument. Like, and again, I don't know. I am a big just facts guy. I don't know. I like until we see it at trial. I will tell you if that happens to be the case at trial, it is going to be a major issue for the prosecution. A major issue.
I didn't hear anything
Obviously,
you just said. I have no idea what the hell you just. I don't even know what happened. I don't even know what you're
Wow.
answering. Who you're talking to. I got nothing for you.
Her son Jeremy quietly snuck on, whispered in her ear, and she's like, "Okay, you got to go." He left like a champ. Like you're just.
That's not true. It's not true. Don't believe the guy. That's not true. He comes in here all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I love her. She's
look at,
really my partner in crime.
Look
Like
at
on,
her super cool setup back there.
I know she's got a dope set.
I think you
Super-
should have a super dope set.
I agree.
Add some LED lights around here.
I
Turn
mean,
them red and
you're not
white.
wrong. You are not wrong.
Yeah, open that.
then make a little
All right, now the whole peanut gallery's in here. Amps great. Both of you guys get out.
peanut
The
gallery.
peanut gallery? What does that mean?
He actually called me a peanut 2 days ago.
Where's the peanut gallery?
All right.
Why are the fish-
Okay. Well. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I have
right.
to answer that question. Bob,
That's
I
fine.
need
We
to
can wrap
you.
it up. We're
Right, you can you please? Of course.
All right, I'm gonna let you wrap it up. I'm gonna pull in Allie. I'm gonna say we're done, Bob. It's over. We've completed this whole thing. No, but I do. I really thank you for coming on. You know, I have so much respect for you. Even if I'm not a huge fan of defense attorneys, I am a huge Bob Motta fan. So
I appreciate that. And a lot of us are pretty good people, believe it or not. Like a lot of us are genuine people. A lot of us are, you know, fighting for the Constitution.
I know. I was just giving you a hard time. You literally disqualified me in front of my whole audience.
I mean, you deserved it. You're very biased. Super biased.
Super biased. Just probably true. It's probably
So,
true. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Dude, like
Where'd you
always,
go?
I've told you, like I loved the last live with you. Like 3 hours just flies by. It really does. Like
It really
Yeah.
does.
It does. And it's like, and I am who I am. I can be a goofball, but I try to give you some good content with a little bit of brains behind it. And I am passionate about this particular issue. You know what I mean? So it means something to me. It should mean something to all of us. It really should. It's that kind of thing. So I'm always chomping at the bit to hang with you, Teresa. You know that.
No, I appreciate it so much.
Dude, get out
You're
of my
always
room.
welcome.
Out of my room, both of you. Now
Sounds
they're
like a teenage.
What
Sounds like a
was that?
teenage, like he's the big brother. Get out of my room. This is my room. Mom,
Amy,
only my
Wow.
room.
It's one thing for one of them. Like two of them in here is too much. Like I ain't having it.
Aw, they're ready. They're ready for some attention. They're like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go do something.
They are. They're trying.
No,
to
I've
get me
got
to
3 of
bring
them.
to
So
the
I
movie.
get it. That's exactly what
Yeah.
happens. You start to see Tracy. You start to see my eyes go up because I'm like, okay, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3.
Well, I'm
you know,
down to so our first 2 are like grown and out, and then we've got our 17-year-old who doesn't want anything to do with us, and then Scout. So Scout's like my last, So I adore her. She's my last thing. It's like it goes
I
so
know.
fast. It goes so fast. It's like it's crazy. So I'm like. I try to soak it up as much as I can. And it's like I spend too much time like on my phone doing this shit when I should be engaging with my kid. But I'm trying to
I do that.
build a monster with the pod, It's like I'm working so hard and I really do enjoy it. Like I love doing this. Like if I didn't love I don't consider this to be work because I enjoy this. I love interacting with our subs and our viewers, and it's like it's fun to me. It's like and I love that people are interested. Like if you read through because like you could have given me 1,000 questions because there was a 1,000 wonderful questions in here. And please, y'all, we weren't trying to ignore you. Like you guys like were crushing the chat. Like it took me 45 minutes to scroll through it. So, like we tried to get fun. Oh, Law Nerd Amber knows what's up. So I just found out I'm going to be a grandfather and my chosen name is Fun Pa.
Fun Pa?
That's right. Don't make that face at me. Yes, Fun Pa.
Like Fun Pa?
Fun Pa.
Do you understand that you've had children, you know what letters they have a hard time saying. You're going to end up being a fupa. And that's not a
You know what? I'll deal with it. At some point they'll get it right. Fupa. Hey. Hey. Hopefully nobody in the chat knows what that is.
Oh, I'm sure they all do. So when I'll tell you this story and then I'm gonna let you go. When my brother became a grandpa for the first time, he was really like adamant on I don't even know what the heck the name was that he wanted to be called. And so my great nephew, I was like, you're going to call him Pappy. And so for like 2 months, I just kept telling him to call him Pappy. And that was not the name my brother had picked. And now my great nephew is 6, and I can tell you that my brother is Pappy. And I don't even know what the other name was anymore. I totally convinced him to.
So my daughter, my 17-year-old, she was in a Pappy phase for a minute, like calling me Pappy. I'm like, don't be doing that Pappy shit with me. I'm like, or you see to me. So I'm trying to update it because to me, Grandpa is like some old timey shit. Like, it's the like, and the reality is, in 10 years, I want everybody to come back to this live because when you walk into your local CVS or Walgreens to buy your Father's Day cards and you see actual Fun Pa cards there, you know where it started. Because like every time I start some shit, like I'm telling you, I have proof. I brought the term salty back from the dead. Like I used to say salty back when I was in high school, all the way back, like in 86, 87, 88, we used to use salty. Like, oh, why are you so salty? It died.
Yeah.
It died for 20 years, like off the face of the planet. When my son was a junior in high school, I told him, I said, like, look, dude, because I was a sociology major. I'm like, we're about to do a sociological experiment. I said, I want to bring the word salty back. He's like, salty? What do you mean? Like, it's like too spicy? I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, what salty used to mean is like, why you upset? Why you
Yeah.
why you pissed off? Why you being salty? Why you? So I'm like, now I want you to start using it at school. I'm going to start using it when I go out into the public, like in appropriate places. And so we did it for like a year and a half, like consistently. And then all of a sudden, the shit came back, bro. And I'm taking full credit for it. I brought Salty back. And I am
And
creating
no,
fun
but
pop.
I'm telling you right now, your cards are gonna be saying a word that you're gonna be like, this is not what I meant for it to say.
But all right, let me like everyone who's a grandparent knows that.
Why don't you
the
be
best part
Pops?
about
You could totally be Pops.
Teresa, you're never, if my wife can't change my mind, you're never changing my mind. Fun pa it is. Fun pa.
That's fine. You know what I'm
You
going to
know
do?
what?
I'm just going to get a hold of your grandchild when they're old enough to start talking, and I'm going to use my persuasiveness to get them to call you what I do. It's going to be fun.
That's so fun. Man, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, wait a second here. Oh, am I boring you? Says Salty never died in my world.
I didn't know Salty died either, to be honest with you.
Oh, bullshit. You guys are full of it. You're both full of it.
I mean,
Prove
maybe
it.
it died in Illinois,
Oh, please.
but like in California, like we're just cool like that. We've always
right.
used Salty.
You
We've
guys-
always been
You
salty.
guys are cool. You guys came up with that lame ass Valley Girl shit that was like, I was so glad that shit died. I mean, gag me with a spoon. If that shit ever makes a comeback, put me on.
We're gonna call it. It's gonna be you because you're the one who just said it. You're getting all the credit for that. When they
I
come
brought
back here
that
in
shit
10 years
back.
and watch this live.
Yeah. I didn't use the right, inflection. So it's like you can't come all the way back unless you use the right inflection with that.
Yeah. Why you sound so
Oh
salty?
man. All right, you guys. So Teresa, I adore you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
You're amazing. I love your people. We have a ton of crossover, obviously. I love all
We do.
y'all out there. Thanks for hanging with us for 3 hours. We hope that we entertained. We hope you educated. And if you haven't checked out my channel, come and check it out.
Make sure
More
you do.
importantly, if you haven't
The
listened to Defense Diaries podcast, hit that QR code right there. It'll bring you right there. I promise you.
Your link
It's not
tree
me
is also
acting
been
like goofy. Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's
your
just
link
like-
tree is also in the description too. Yeah, make sure that
Yeah.
it's really good. You guys are absolutely missing out. And it wasn't even something that I was like into, and then I was like, all right, Bob, I'm gonna listen to it and I'll tell you what I think. But no, it's very, very good.
Oh,
I appreciate you. And
I appreciate you. See, Sleuthy, I saw that, like where Sleuthy called Murder Sheet salty and they blocked her immediately. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Of all the flavors they chose to be salty.
Yeah.
Oh.
Debate
That's their loss.
Greeno? I don't think so. I'm not what is his like? So Greeno's been hitting me up. I don't know much about him.
Has he?
I know that. Yeah, he wants he wants me to come on and debate him on like. Apparently, he thinks like Alan's the guy. I'm
that's what I
not
was
like.
I didn't know he was
it's
sold at Alan.
he doesn't seem to understand. I'm not going to debate about some shit that we don't know what the facts are. Like that like we don't know what the evidence is other than the bullshit that's in the PCA that may be valid or it may not be. And I know what's in the PCA for the defense, which I call the memo. I mean, that's their version of the PCA. Like in terms of I'm not there. Like I'm not debating the facts of this case or innocence or guilt right now. What I'm doing is again just my concern is the constitutionality of the case right now, and Rick Allen's constitutional rights, and the girls getting a fair trial that happens. So it's a one and done deal, and that they get the right guy. That's all I care about. That's it.
Right. So I didn't know that Greeno was that far to the fact that he thought he was guilty. I thought he was still kind of on the fence.
So what does he want me to what does he want to debate me on?
I don't know. I didn't know that he did. That's why I was like, wants to debate you? Like that doesn't even make sense. Like, why debate you? Like on the judicial
he hit me up after the live with Shay last night. Sent me like a long thing. He's like, yo, I want to debate. He's like, I loved your discussion. I want to debate you. And I'm like, on what, dude? Like what else? Like what are we debating? Like are you of the position that those guys should be like not reinstated? I mean, I've heard the debate. I'd rather debate Brett.
Yeah, but I don't even know if that would be a judicial debate. You guys would actually be talking about the right and wrong way to do things on the judicial perspective.
Right, like that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what Greeno's trying to debate me on.
Crime said he's doing a deep dive on your wife.
Who is? Deep dive on my wife.
I don't know that. I'm not even going to touch it. But Bob,
I could give a shit less if like he's deep diving that Allison got disciplined on the Garcia case. I mean, it's in the podcast, so he could deep dive if he wants to deep dive that she got disciplined on a federal case that she won.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I wouldn't take anything. Yeah, don't take anything because you got to hear it for yourself if you even want to hear it. Otherwise, because it just can cause a lot of chaos, and that's the YouTube side of it. And I don't want to end like that because I appreciate your time very much. So
yeah, I mean, good luck. That's all I'll tell you now.
And once again, as we started this, we'll end it. And Allie can fight her own battles, and she can do it very well.
No question. Like that's no doubt about that. All right, y'all.
No.
Love yous.
Make sure one, tell her that I hope she feels better, and two, make sure that next time that you are able to come on, that she can come with you.
100%. Yeah, she will. She'll hang. She's done.
All right.
All right.
I appreciate it. Bye, Bob.
Always. Ciao.
All right, you guys. Thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I know that you guys have 1,000 other places that you could be, and yet you choose to spend your time here with me and Bob, who literally just disqualified me as the judge between him, the defense diaries, and the prosecutors podcast. Like, what? I'm totally good for that role, but it is what it is. Make sure you guys are listening to Bob's podcast, especially on Gacy. And I know he's doing the whole Avery thing. I haven't got there yet, but I know that the Gacy one is definitely worth your time. So make sure you're there. Go hang out on his defense diaries YouTube channel. It's always a good time, and it's always very entertaining with him and his lovely wife Allie. So make sure that you guys stop over there. And then on Monday, I'm going to actually be on It's a Criming Shame with Sunny and Aspen to go hang out and just discuss the case and just chill and talk some shit. So I will see you guys. Go enjoy your weekend. I love each and every one of you and appreciate all of you for spending your time here with us tonight. Have a good one.